Today's class is on the intestinal system. It's going to be recorded because we are going to, this is going to be the ones that I give to people that want the information from now on the CDs. So please ask a lot of questions. It would really help. Here's my disclaimer. That's just for people who, you guys are probably so sick of my disclaimer. So I'll just flash it to you. You can pause it later on when you get your CDs. So we're going to talk, last week we talked, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the stomach and that part of the digestive system, which is zone 1. Now we're going to talk about zone 2, which follows it right around it, immediate after the stomach. I don't teach the 7 zones typically because most people's bowels are all bent out of shape and either too large, too small, misshapen, and that being like that, the autonomic nerve follows that, the bowel. So you can't just go by 1/3 of the way, 2/3 of the way, or whatever. Although it should be 1/3 of the way, it usually is not. The eye is really very well wired to the body. Since your cecum, your ascending colon, and your transverse colon is on the outside of your right side of the body, it shows that way in the eye. And your small intestines here, transverse colon, descending colon, and sigmoid. So these are the parts that we're going to be talking about today. As I said, it should be about 1/3 of the way out. It should be basically cylindrical, I guess you call it. It should be like a circle. However, most people's are not. And this is why I don't teach the 7 zones. I took this brown with the pupil and the lesion, and I posted it 3 different times. So this lesion is the exact same place as this one, the exact same place as this one. However, the autonomic nerve wreath in this one, or the collarette, is very close to the pupil. Since that's the case, this lesion is not touching the autonomic nerve wreath, so it's a lung lesion. This one, because it's 1/3 of the way that it should be, is touching, so it is a heart lesion. And this one, since the bowel is so huge, is a diverticulum. So you have to use your autonomic nerve wreath or your collarette as your reference. Where it is can change where a lesion is. Does everybody follow that?
Right.
Okay, good. This is something that Dr. Bernard Jensen came up with. And basically the premise behind this is basically like your thymus gland. If you have a weakness in your thymus gland, it may be that this part of the bowel is not healthy. Either you have a diverticulum, or it's toxic, or the health is just not what it should be. Here it would be for the heart. Here the spleen. I'm not sure how he came upon this, but this is what he believes it. And it is true in a way. Like a lot of people think that your body sucks the nutrients out of the intestines and it goes wherever it feels like going. But that's not true. The body does send things to different places, like hormones. They're not just floating through whenever the heart needs it, it sucks it out. It's sent there. It's all done by God, and it is definitely an intelligence and a designed apparatus, as it were. So, some of this I do slightly believe. However, if you have, say, this part of your bowel taken out, that doesn't mean you can never absorb calcium again. The other parts will try to take over. I think probably what this is the primary place that the nutrients come. But if you have your gallbladder, yeah?
I agree with that, because when we looked at Brittany's eyes over here in the pancreas area, in this little area down here, all that was, remember, that's where we saw a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they found that her pancreas is a mess.
Right. But Dr. Bernard Jensen's premise, that the way I was taught anyhow, is if this part of your bowel is taken out, then your lungs and bronchioles won't get any nutrients. And if that was true, they would die.
Oh, right. I get that, yeah. But as far as, being able to, I think this is an awesome thing for us as iridologists, or practitioners, because if we see an area like we saw in this whole bowel part here near the pancreas, you can do something about it, and it tells you where to look elsewhere. I think that's what I'm trying to say, is this, it's a guide on looking elsewhere.
I agree. But I do think that the body will compensate.
I do too. I think it's how it's designed.
That's what I'm not convinced of.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Although I imagine it would not be quite as good.
Well, anytime that another part of the body has to compensate for another side that's weaker, it's never as up to par.
Right.
So, yeah. I do like this diagram, though.
Yeah, me too. Actually, right here somewhere, I think it'd be about right here, is a brain area, because I have a friend who has a brain tumor. Let me show you the chart. So she has a brain tumor right here, and right here in her bowel, she has a huge dark black diverticulum.
Really?
Yep. So I have no doubt, in part, when the body was pulling nutrients in to rebuild the brain, that it was pulling all those toxins, and that contributed to the brain tumor.
Well, we're always talking about how our gut health is so important. I mean, it's where autoimmune disease issues are and things like this. So this makes total sense to me, how it coincides.
It does.
Yeah.
And I don't know how anybody could see this, understand that, and think that we all came from a big bang.
Oh, right. We were just talking about that. Yep.
So just to show you the autonomic nerve wreath, this is what it looks like right here. So if you see this one is too close, it should be out to here. But it's real close. So if you did have a lesion right here, it wouldn't be the heart. It's the wrong eye anyhow, but because the autonomic nerve wreath isn't so deep. This one is huge. Look at this. You can't even see where all of it is, but you can see where some of it is. So if you have a lesion here, that would still be in the intestines. One of the things that you do for if you have a constricted intestines is a lot of fiber and work with the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
For the large intestines, I would work with fiber to clean it out because there's a lot of old stuff packed in there. And I would probably do Sclera sagrada. In the beginning, when I started telling people about Sclera, they come back and they say, "Oh no, the doctor told me that I should never take that. It's turning my bowels black." And at first I was concerned, and I asked one of the teachers, and he says, "Well, yeah, that's because Sclera is dark, And he says it's just staining it. If you stop taking it, it'll go away." And these same people say, "Yeah, the doctor knew I was off of it because they said it was going back to normal." Well, what's happening is the same as what happened to these fingers. We had a bunch of blueberries that we were putting in bags and freezing, and look, the tips of my fingers were turning blue. That didn't mean there was something wrong with my circulation or the health of my fingers were compromised. It's just a staining. So if someone tells you, oh, I can't take cascara because the doctor says it turns my intestines black, it turns everybody's intestines black. Just like eating blueberries could turn your fingers blue. But it's nothing to be afraid of. Okay, so I have it here. Make sure you have between 5 and 7 servings of vegetables a day, raw, 3 to 5 servings of fruits a day. If you're going to eat grains, eat the whole grain. Make sure you have a lot of fiber. And then I would work with the nervous system. Some fiber that's really good, probably my favorite is Everybody's Fiber. We do have Nature's 3 that's very good, but Everybody's Fiber has both soluble and insoluble fiber. So it will sweep it out and mop it up, and the slippery elm will help heal. But anytime you take fiber at all, you need to make sure you drink a lot of water, because if not, it will pull all the moisture out, and it gets like a brick. This is what soluble and insoluble fiber look like. Insoluble fiber looks like hay, and it's a cellulose. So like psyllium hulls would look like this under a microscope. Excuse me. Soluble fiber, however, is more like a mop, like I said. It doesn't have the rough, hard edges, sharp edges. It mops things up. And it's usually a demucilin herb, or as far as I know, it's always a demucilin herb that will suck toxins into it like a sponge, or like the mop. So if someone comes to you and they have something like celiacs or irritable bowel syndrome, that they're having pain, you probably do not want to do the insoluble fiber by itself, because it can make it even more tender and raw in there. Sometimes you just have to use plain slippery elm. Does everybody understand the difference between soluble and insoluble fiber?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at all times, avoid white flour products, noodles and bread. Just don't do it, because that cakes inside the intestines. I don't have pictures of the intestines, but that will pack in there. I mean, if you take a piece of bread and you put water on it and you mush it up, and you get the right consistency, you can use it as glue. The analogy that I like to do is, did you ever do a roast and you put a little bit of white flour on the outside of the roast to keep the juices in?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you eat white flour, it kind of does that to the intestines, so the intestines cannot suck all the nutrients in. They just kind of cake there.
Good analogy. Would you do slippery elm with Everybody's Fiber?
About half of slippery elm is, about half of Everybody's Fiber is slippery elm. So if someone had a really, really, really bad intestines, maybe. But most people don't need it.
Okay. And then what do you think about eating pineapple?
Pineapple has bromelain in it, and bromelain is an enzyme. Bromelain and pepsin are two enzymes that people sometimes use to eat toxins off the wall of the intestines. And I think organic pineapple is good. I never heard of a reason why someone shouldn't eat raw organic pineapple.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff they get in the cans, they have purposely taken all the bromelain out. Do you remember back in the old days, Jell-O would say, do not use with pineapple. Does anybody
Yeah.
remember this? It doesn't say that anymore because they have a hybrid of pineapple that most canned pineapples are, that they took all the bromelain out, so it doesn't make it watery anymore. So they don't have that in the back of Jell-O, I don't think, anymore. Not that they eat Jell-O, but last time I made it for my grandkids when they were sick, it didn't have that in there anymore because they took all the bromelain out, which was the best part of pineapple.
Right. Okay.
Then there's another condition. I'm sorry, was there another question?
No.
Okay. Then there's another condition called a spastic bowel, or some people call it a nervous bowel, whatever you want to call it. But basically, it is misshapen. So the intestines, instead of just being like this, like it should be, because it does have a little bit of a bulging to it, it will be more like this. Whenever you see this. People who have spastic bowels, often it affects their personality. They are people that usually can just, at a drop of a hat, just blow up at you. No matter how good of a person or how kind of a person they are. Because their nervous system is that spastic. Then I don't know if you ever heard of the brain-gut connection. That some people believe that the brain and the intestines should be taught, or even if someone has a specialist, they should do both, because there is such a close correlation between the two. For instance, 85% of all your serotonin is produced in the gut, which is needed by the brain and the nervous system.
Now, with that spastic, you call it spastic, I learned that with that to ask about bowel inflammation in the digestive, predisposed liver problems, low nerve energy. I mean, that's all stuff that kind of comes with it, but that's how we were taught it as well.
It does. Plus, these people typically will not have even bowel movements.
No, there's sometimes constipation, sometimes diarrhea.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially nervous diarrhea.
Right. And I learned it as star shape or jagged wreath.
Okay. Another name for it.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. So it is saying, do you think there is a close correlation between the stomach and nervous system?
Well, there's a bundle of nerves called the solar plexus right behind the stomach. So yeah, some people when they get nervous they throw up. But I think there's even a deeper connection between the brain and the intestines.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, a lot of places now, whenever you read, you'll see the brain-gut. They have it like brain/gut, like it's one thing.
Mm-hmm. I personally think that, I know that depression comes as a lot with the liver and different things, but I also think that depression is connected to the gut health.
Oh, yeah. Well, it makes sense if 85% of serotonin is produced in the intestines.
Absolutely.
And serotonin is the feel-good, neurotransmitter. So, yeah.
You have doctors look at you like you're crazy.
Well, it's really sad. I remember a long time ago when I had bowel problems, and I used to have horrible, horrible bowel problems. At one time, they wanted to give me a temporary colostomy because I had ulcerations all through my intestines.
Mm.
And I remember talking to the doctor, and I remember he said, basically, he says, all the intestines is nothing but a pipe. Has no function other than just a pipe, so things can move through it. And boy, was he wrong.
Right.
He also told me that having a bowel movement once a week to once every 10 days was normal for my body because that's what it was all my life. He was wrong on that too.
Right.
Because my health has changed, and I feel so much better in there. I no longer have bleeding ulcers or anything like that. No discomfort at all, and I have 2-3 bowel movements a day. That's exactly what was causing it. Okay. Since stress and nervous system has a lot to do with the intestinal muscles relaxing and contracting, sometimes taking Chinese stress relief, nerve control, or NutriCalm can be helpful. NutriCalm, there's people that love NutriCalm. I have a friend, that's her email is NutriCalm. That word's in her email because she just thinks that's the greatest thing in the world. However, it does have B vitamins. And if you're someone like me who has a methylation problem, you have to be careful with it. So it works wonderful for those who can tolerate it. But when I took it, I thought I was going to kill somebody. I felt like a mad woman. I couldn't sleep. I was agitated, and I didn't know why. And it was a NutriCalm. So just keep that in mind. If you take it, usually you know within the first 3 hours after you take it, because you'll start feeling jittery. Once in a while, this happens pretty often. Nerve control happens once in a while because people have a weak thymus, but I've never had anyone tell me that. No, I take that back. In 27 years, I've had one person tell me that with Chinese stress relief.
Ada's asking, I know someone that if she holds her pee too long and then goes to the bathroom, she has to poo too. What does that have to do with it? Is there a prolapse intestine?
Well, it's all down there, so it's not uncommon for someone who's pregnant to have to pee a lot, or because they're tubings, and if there's pressure on, like they say, do you ever take a garden hose and you bend it over and it stops going?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the bladder's large, then the feces can't not move down, and it's right up there, and as soon as you pee, it sloughs down, and it gives you a sensation you have to go to the bathroom.
She says she's not pregnant, but this happens a lot if she holds it too long.
Okay, hang on. Take over, please.
Okay. So the question is she goes to the bathroom when she goes pee. I think what's happening probably is the pressure from the bladder is probably pushing down, and then when she goes to the bathroom, it releases. And I think that sometimes just to have an enlarged bladder, sometimes that will work, especially for people who hold their bladder a lot. I think sometimes that might take place. I could be wrong, but that's my thought on that. So I don't know. Because I come across a lot of people who do the same thing. They'll tell me, "Oh yeah, I poo every time I pee." Okay, I don't know that it's a problem, other than possibly it's just being pressure on from the bladder being stretched so much on holding it. Because I know that's basically what a lot of women do, and it's mostly moms that I find that have that same issue.
What did I miss?
Well, I was just talking about that it's a possibility because I come across this issue where women especially hold their bladder for long periods of time because they're a new mom or just what they get busy and stuff. And I think it could be just the pressure against, with the bladder, and then when they go to the bathroom, everything releases at the same time.
Yep.
So I don't find it's a real issue. It's just something that takes place.
And you know what? I probably have a bowel movement every other time I pee.
Yeah.
Or so.
Yeah.
I mean, even if dogs, if you let them out, they'll pee and poop at the same time.
Right. So, but that's basically
all I said. They didn't have
the
sensation before, and as soon as they pee, all of a sudden it's whoa. Usually it's because the feces didn't fall down like it would have if the bladder wasn't full.
Right, exactly. Now Sherry's saying, question, take fatty acids also?
For the nervous system, yes, if it's bad enough, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, fatty acids too. But this is just for the...
Now, have you ever had any issues with stress relief? Anyone?
Me?
Anyone
Oh,
that you know of?
one person.
Really?
They couldn't sleep at night. They
Hmm.
felt zazzed up.
Do you know my husband? He won't take anything else but that Nutricom.
Really? I
He
know.
doesn't like the anxious list. He doesn't like, the Chinese stress relief. He likes the Nutricom, so I went back to the Nutricom.
Yep, like I said, my friend, that's her name,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Well, I even
Her.
tried to trick him and put the new pills into his old bottle,
Mhm.
and he knows the difference. So it's funny. What about Stress J? Somebody's asking.
um. Yeah, Stress J is okay.
See, I
I
like
find
Adaptomax.
I find that these work better, you know.
Really? Okay.
So you use Adaptomax for the nervous system?
I do.
Okay.
For me personally, I do.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I try to take the Adaptomax, and I didn't notice anything. But again, everybody's different, you know.
Right. Now, I've never tried the Stress J, and it's been around for a long time, I know.
Yeah. It's formulated for children.
The Stress J?
Uh-huh. Yeah, Jeannie Burgess formulated for her grandson.
I didn't
That and
realize that.
Thyme J. But she also did Thyme J, and she would give it to them together.
Hmm.
Because some people that take Stress J, it works the opposite on them. Like my
Hmm.
grandson Ben cannot take Stress J. He gets so agitated that he just doesn't know what to do with himself.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to just try it out sometimes, you know?
Hmm. Right.
But if you take one of these, especially these or the Stress J, and you start feeling jittery, then don't take more. It's not like you're going to get used to it as you're having an adverse reaction to it. Either your thymus is off or your methylation's off, something. The reason why people don't have tone in their intestines, if their autonomic nerve release is all stretched out of shape, usually comes from a lack of magnesium. That's probably the number one thing. Spinal cord injuries. Whenever someone has a spinal cord injury, oftentimes they become constipated. Sometimes they hold it, like you were saying, they hold the urine. Well, that's not all they're holding. I know a lot of teachers says, I can't go on a bowel cleanse because I can't in the classroom.
It's
Some people,
interesting, though, that these teachers are not allowing these kids to go to the bathroom when they need to go.
yeah. Well, I think it's the school policy more than individual teachers.
Well, it is, but
Yeah,
it's like, it's wrong. I
it
let the
is.
kids go when they needed to go. Now you learn the kids that want to go every 5 minutes, they don't really have to go, but you know, you let them go. It's a health issue if you don't.
It is. And I fought like crazy when my daughter was in high school. Because my daughter has a bladder about the size of a peanut, or she used to.
Mm-hmm.
And after she ate, every time after she ate, which is after you eat, within about 15 minutes, a half hour, you should have to have a bowel movement. And she did. And she kept on missing this one class because it was about the time after she ate. And she wasn't a smoker. She didn't do the things that, that some kids do to try to get away from it. She just had to go. And the teachers will go before you come into class. She said, I don't have to. And they have in Cambria Heights, their policy is in a marking period, which is what? How much is a marking period? 3 months?
9 weeks.
9 weeks? Okay. So they were allowed to go to the bathroom twice
Wow.
in each class. And if she had to go, she wasn't allowed to go. And she was getting stomach pains. And I went to there. I said, you know what? You do not tell my daughter she can't go to the bathroom. You don't have any problems. She was student of the month. She's a good kid. You don't keep her from going to the bathroom. And I said, I have to take you to court. I'll take you to court, which I wasn't going to take her to court, but I homeschooled her first. But then they made an exception, you know.
Mm.
But that's a shame.
So a question's being asked on this. Would you give magnesium with one of this, like the skeletal strength Cascara or LBS2?
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, skeletal strength has a lot of magnesium in it. So I like the skeletal strength the best as a source of magnesium for anyone who's a little bit constipated. I do suggest the other sometimes too, but I took a class with a coroner, and he said the difference between people having cancer of the bowel or not having cancer, we couldn't find cancer of the bowel. He says we have discovered it's how much calcium and magnesium is in the tissue.
Really?
Yep. He said, you think it'd be fiber? And he said, fiber does have something to do with it, but it's more the calcium magnesium. People who are depleted of calcium magnesium are more susceptible to bowel cancer.
Right.
And those who die and they have good bowels have high amounts of calcium and magnesium.
Wow.
So that's why I usually go to skeletal strength rather than just magnesium combination, although it is good.
Okay.
People taking laxatives too much, you know, they take laxatives to lose weight, and then after they're done losing whatever weight they want to lose, they can't go to the bathroom unless they use a laxative. Well, Cascara, some people call Cascara laxative, but it's really not. Because if you take Cascara properly, you get to the point that you can't tolerate Cascara anymore because your bowels are moving well. If you take it like you would a laxative, then yes, you can become a little bit dependent on it. So some people will wait 2 days, 3 days, they haven't gone, so they take some Cascara Sagrada. And then they go to the bathroom like crazy, and then they don't take it for a couple more days, and they take it again. That, your body will wait for the Cascara. But if you take Cascara Sagrada on a daily basis, say I take 4 a day, and with 4 a day, I'm having a bowel movement or 2 bowel movements a day. Stay at that and take it every day. If you had a bowel movement today or not, still take it, as long as you don't get diarrhea. And it actually helps teach the bowel to do peristaltic action. It helps nourish the liver, so it will produce a hormone that causes you to have bowel movements, and it will normalize. I went, just from eating wheat, whole wheat, I went from having a bowel movement once every 10 days, once a week, to maybe once every 3 or 4 days. But I started taking Cascara Sagrada, and I was up to 8 a day, and I had 1 bowel movement. And I took it every day because if not, the next day I wouldn't have a bowel movement. Then it got to the point I was having 2 and 3 bowel movements, and I kept on taking it anyhow. Then I started getting diarrhea, and I backed off a little bit. And then I stayed at 7 or 6. I think I went to 6. And after 6, after a while I started getting diarrhea, so I backed down to 4. And I did that until I don't need it anymore. So Cascara, whether or not you become dependent on it, is how you take it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And same with the LBS too. You know, it will actually help promote normal bowel function if you take it right. But if you take it as you would X-Lax, then it's going to act like X-Lax.
Okay. All right, we got a couple questions here. What about Silumhol to go to the bathroom?
If someone is constipated, I do not give them psyllium hulls right away. Because the psyllium hulls is in the in the bowel too long, it sucks up all the water, and it's like they're having a brick. It even causes constipation. What I usually do is someone is not having hardly any bowel movements, I might, if it's dry, if the bowel movements are dry, I add slippery elm because that'll keep moisture in it. If it's just normal, I work with the cascara and the skeletal strength and the magnesium first. Then after their bowels are moving at least once a day or twice a day, then I add the fiber, the psyllium hulls.
But it kind of scrubs it and sweeps it out, all the product on the side, yeah.
But if you take it without the muscle being toned and enough magnesium and the liver causing the peristaltic action, you can get an impaction. And I know a lot of people just do that, but it's not the most efficient way of doing it.
Did you say that the cascara is also good for the liver?
Absolutely. It nourishes and stimulates the liver.
Okay. So if you ruined your bowel from laxatives as a young adult, how do you fix it now?
You have to reteach it. So I would probably take cascara and liver cleanse. And then after a while, if you need some magnesium, if you're lacking magnesium, and the symptoms of lack of magnesium is craving chocolate or coffee, if your heart flutters, if your butt is cold to the touch, those kind of things, then, or if your muscles seem weak, then I would add some magnesium. And actually, there was a lady that, I don't know if I have her picture in here or not, her eyes are yellow and then her bowel is black. Mm-hmm. And the only time she could have bowel movements wasn't even taking laxatives. Laxatives wouldn't even move it anymore, even from the doctor, was if she got a colonic. Mm. And it started out with her wanting to lose weight and took a bunch of X-Lax and became dependent on it, and then it worked for the body, so the body became very, very lazy. And what we did is we gave her some cascara, and we built up the cascara and the liver cleanse, add the magnesium, had her walk. Because when you walk, you stimulate the same muscles that cause peristaltic action. There's a reason why people take a dog for a walk and it poops.
Right.
I don't know if everybody's dog's like that, but if my dog goes out and play, he can go to the bathroom and come in the house. If he goes out and play or we take him for a walk, somewhere along the line he's going to poop. Mm-hmm. And it's because it causes that peristaltic action to do it.
Okay.
And it's a lot of work, but it can be done.
So for how long more or less do you take cascara?
Until you can't tolerate it anymore. If I took 2 cascara, I'd be sitting on the pot probably all day. Mm-hmm. Because I don't need it anymore. So just listen to your body. I would take it until, you could take it for eternity if you needed to. But I would take it until you start getting loose bowels and then back off, and you'll just end up not eating any at all.
Okay.
That's a good question, because a lot of people think I take it for 3 weeks and it should be done. It's not. I was probably on cascara for about 2 years where I couldn't tolerate it anymore. Or a long time.
It really depends on the person. It really does.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that sometimes you can do, especially for babies. Now with babies, I would give LB extract. And whenever the little Leishi league tells you that if your baby's having 1 bowel movement a week, they're full of crap. And my visiting teacher came, and she just had a new baby about 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago. And she said, he's always so miserable, and he's whiny, and he won't sleep right. Of all my children, he just the hardest to comfort. And I said, well, how often is he having bowel movements? That's my first thought when it comes to the baby. And she says, well, probably about once every 11 days or,
Oh.
10 days, something like that. And I said, well, no wonder he's miserable. She said, no, no, no. I contacted the Leishi League, and they said since he's getting breast milk, that's fine. I said, no, the Leishi League is wrong on this. I respect what they do, but when it comes to this, they are dead wrong. So she put the little guy on LB extract and would put some probiotic on her breast, on her nipples whenever he nursed, so he's getting the probiotics. And now he's moving his bowels once, twice a day. And she said, he's just a happy fella now.
Aw, poor thing.
I know, no wonder he's feeling so bad. But they told her that was normal. But it's not. But another thing you can do for children or older people or someone who's had an injury, a spinal injury, is you can do reflexology on the intestines. And what you do is you milk up this part of the foot over to the middle, then you milk over, down, and around. And you do it this way. Don't go the opposite way, because if you do, you can cause the opposite reaction. But go like this on their feet. And it often helps them have a bowel movement. Okay, so we know where the small and large intestines are. So remember, the light pink is the large intestines. The purple is the small intestines. So this half of the small intestines show up here. This half of the small intestines show up there. This one shows this part. This is here. Half of the transverse colon is here. This half of the transverse colon is up here. This is the descending colon, the sigmoid, and then the anus or rectum. This is so accurate, it's unbelievable. Hang on, say something, Victoria, please.
Okay. Sorry, I was doing something on the line. I'm not sure what she was talking about, the colon, I guess. Question. Anybody have a question? Somebody? No? Okay. It isn't accurate. I like these kind of diagrams. Matter of fact, I like taking pictures. And if you want a picture of it, there's a little camera at the top of her screen. You can just click that little camera and put it on your desktop. But this is a great illustration to look at and use when you're working with people, because it kind of gives you a bird's eye view of where is what going on. Mm-hmm. And then going back to your picture, Mary, of your feet and stuff, I am a reflexologist. I'm a certified reflexologist, and this isn't only good for babies, believe me. This is awesome for every person. And honestly, if you can find someone who does reflexology, it would be good for you to have something like this done on a regular basis. Around here, they call them foot zoners. You can do that, or you can just have a regular reflexologist do some work on your feet. But it is amazing with what you can do for your bowel on your feet, as well as your hands. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It works on anybody, but those are the times I really use it. Is on
right on the right. Yeah. I volunteer a lot of my time around and stuff, and you can go into, if you're really, really enjoy serving, you can go into some of these assisted living homes and you can give little foot rubs. You don't have to give anything big because you don't want to start problems, but you can give little foot rubs or hand rubs to the elderly people, and they just suck it up.
I think someone cloned you. You cannot possibly get done all the stuff you get done. I don't know how you do it.
There's 4 of me. No, I don't think so. You know what? I don't know. When I can. I don't do everything. Somebody asked about, I missed last class, how do I get the CD?
If you had the class paid in full, just email me and say I need the CD. If not, you can, pay it in full, then I'll send a CD.
Right. Ada's asking, when your chiropractor gives you a massage to open the sphincter, where is that at? Where's the sphincter on the diagram?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you've got your splenic. Go back to your thing, your diagram.
It'd be right here.
Yeah. If that's what she's talking
The
about. She says
chiropractors don't do that.
massage. No, I think she says massage.
I don't know, I'm not sure if I want anybody to massage my sphincter.
Right?
That's a little too personal. I'm touchy-feely, but not so much there.
That's funny.
Okay. But this is so accurate, it's scary. One time, there's a girl in college, and I was doing some webinars. Not a webinar, I'm sorry, herbal hour. And she had a black, really, really black lesion, and it was puffed out right here. And I suspected she had cancer because it was nasty. And I told her, I said, you have some black right here. She said, well, no one's going to see it. I don't care. I said, no, that indicates it's something really serious. And she just kind of fluffed it off. Whenever you're in college, you're still invincible, and she just wouldn't take it seriously. So finally, I did something that I don't want any of you guys ever doing. I probably wouldn't even tell you, but the statute of limitations up. I told her, I says, I think you have cancer in this part of your bowel. It was right below the splenic flexure. And she took notice to that. Her mom took her to the hospital. They did a scope. They had to scope up her butt, and they checked all around here. And the doctor says, you tell that lady she's nuts. There's nothing wrong with your intestines. So she went around telling everyone that I was trying to scare people into buying herbs. About 4 months after that, whenever I heard that she said that, I found out that she was bleeding from the bowel. She went to the hospital, and they found right below the splenic flexure cancer.
Mm.
So this is so impressive that it found the cancer in her intestines before an actual scope did. That just kind of blows me away, So it's very accurate. It's exactly where it showed up in the eye. Now, there's a difference, and things are different and things are the same about the large and the small intestines. And through the whole digestive tract, like from your throat to your anus. You're basically a tube, which is true, but they do have different functions. But the tube has two different kinds of muscles. It has muscles that contract this way, and some that contract like a rubber band. So what happens whenever you say you swallow something, or if something's going through the digestive tract, the long muscles will go like this, and then the muscle that goes around here goes like that. Then it pushes it down a little further, and then this muscle contracts, and it pushes it down a little further, and this muscle contracts, and so on. These muscles are amazing in how supple they should be and how far they should stretch. These kind of muscles are found in the digestive tract, the bladder, and the uterus. they can, well, a uterus can accommodate a 9-pound baby, when it's usually about the size of 3 fingers. So it can really stretch. Your intestines also can stretch, so much so that the coroner that I took the class with said that they would call around to see who had the largest bowel. It's kind of like a thing that they did. So they call around to all the local coroners, and they had, for a while, kind of like the trophy or whatever you call it, they gave, because there was a man whose large intestines, which is the last 5 to 7 feet of your intestines, usually 5, it weighed 69 pounds. That's how much old fecal matter was in there. So that really stretched like crazy. Then inside of the muscle wall is a mucosal lining, a very slippery lining like you have inside your mouth, so that food can move along. If that lining is too thin, it rubs against muscle, and it's the same as my grandkids going out in the grass with a sled or going out today when there's a lot of snow with a sled. The sled's going to go much faster on the snow because it's slippery. So if this lining is healthy, it's easier for the muscles to push everything around down to where it belongs. Was that English? Does that make sense?
It totally made sense.
Okay. So making sure that, and that's where slippery elm is major, helps build up this lining. How Sclera works is Sclera, besides nourishing the liver, causing the bile salts to be released, and encouraging the liver to release that hormone, it also is a slight irritant. So if the pill here, let's say Sclera is not going to be in the pill form anymore, but let's say the Sclera is here, it's going to irritate that part of the intestines, so it will contract to get rid of it. Then this one will be irritated, so it will contract to get rid of it. So it actually can help reteach your bowel to do the peristaltic action. And since it irritates it, it does it quite strongly. Like taking a baseball and squishing it and building up your muscles. That's what it does. The bigger the ball that you would have, the harder you could squish it. Like say you have a little pea and you try to squish it. It's going to be hard. Or this is better, a tube of toothpaste. If you want to get a tube of toothpaste out and it's a brand new tube, you just barely squish it and the paste comes out. But if the tube is half empty, you have to really work it to get it to come out. So you do have to have some fiber. After they're having bowel movements, like once a day, once every other day, then you can add the fiber so that it can push it along easier too, like a full tube of toothpaste. So do you understand when you do what for the bowels? That's why you don't just give them fiber right away with nothing else, because if so, it'll just stay here.
Susan says, I love your story about Sclera as an irritant. Clients really understand that. Also like something vile in your mouth that you want to spit out.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So that's why it actually reteaches the bowels to move the way that they should. Okay, we're going to start with the small intestines. The average person is about 20 feet in length, their small intestines. The circumference, like if you take a cross section, should be between 1 1/4 and 1 1/2 inches. Some are like this.
Wow.
And then it's all through the lower abdominal area. There's many functions. It's not just like a pipe like that doctor had told me. It helps digestion. It neutralizes the hydrochloric acid. It absorbs the nutrients. The gallbladder finishes digestion by dumping into that part. It reabsorbs water, eliminates waste. Oh, and I'm sorry, was it 85%? I was wrong. 95% of the body's serotonin is produced in the small intestines.
Wow.
So whenever they say, oh, you got some diverticulum, we'll just take a couple feet of your intestines out. These are the things that they are compromising. It kind of bothers me how little respect the medical profession has for the intestines.
Or for the body, for that matter.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're right, for the body in general. The small intestines has so much surface area because it goes like this within the intestines, and then the intestines kind of ribbon through here too.
Mm-hmm.
But if you took the average person's small intestines, you stretched it out, the surface area would cover a tennis court.
That
Can you imagine?
I know, it's just amazing to me.
It is. Okay, we talk about the balloon-like muscles. But you know, a balloon, if you blow it up and you let it out, and you blow it up really high for a long period of time and you let it down, it never goes back down to the normal size. So if you have a lot of fecal matter in there for a long period of time, it actually changes the shape and the size of your intestines. Mm-hmm. That's why the Sclera will help tone that up. So we're going to take the small intestines in three sections: the duodenum, the ileum, and the jejunum. Although it's supposed to be duodenum, jejunum, can never pronounce that one, or the ileum, because they have different functions. The first part, the duodenum, or as I heard some doctors call it, duodenum, but I think duodenum is the correct pronunciation, is usually only 10 to 15 inches, and it's right immediate after the caloric valve from the stomach to about right here. Then there's the jejunum. Thank you. And the ileum. I don't know why I have such a hard time with that word. But inside, as soon as the stomach contents empties, you have something called Brunner glands. And they make this alkaline because in the stomach, the pH of the hydrochloric acid is 1.7. As soon as it hits here, the Brunner glands should alkalize it because you're going to be using enzymes from here on. So the bowel juice, because it's just water at this time, as soon as it leaves the stomach, it's called chyme. I don't know if I have that here anywhere.
Chyme?
Yeah. I've heard it pronounced both ways, just like duodenum and duodenum. So chyme or chyme, wherever you want to pronounce it. But it's a liquid, and it's acidic. As soon as it comes in here, the enzymes will not work if it stays acidic. So if your Brunner glands weren't working, then you're not going to fully digest. So these Brunner glands are very, very important because they will put a bunch of things in there to neutralize. If you know anyone who's had a pyloric ulcer, most of the time it's because they're so acidic that the Brunner glands aren't able to release the alkaline material to neutralize and to get an ulcer there. This is where most of your carbohydrates are digested, and the pancreas will release lipase.
Is that the area there that for H. pylori area, or is that
Now,
down further?
H. pylori is a bacterium that usually settles in the stomach,
Oh,
but you can
in
get
the
it
stomach.
anywhere in the bowel, from the cardiac sphincter muscle to the anus. But
Oh, see, I
typically you
did
find
not
those
know
in the
that.
stomach. Yeah, it's typically you find those in the stomach.
Okay.
And it's usually a lack of hydrochloric acid that contributes to them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like
Because
people
it's not,
who use baking soda continually.
right, because it kills the hydrochloric acid and then the bacteria can embed into the stomach wall and cause the ulceration. Okay, now you want to pronounce this for me?
Jejunum.
Jejunum.
Mhm.
Um, it has more of the villi in it, where it's going to start sucking in the nutrients. It absorbs carbs, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals. And that is the lighter pink up to about right here. Now there's something called mesentery. And what mesentery is, this is what it looks like. And I took this off. This is one non-copyright thing, but I can't draw that. But this is actually your intestines, your small intestines. But do you see how there's like a membrane that has blood vessels in it? This is what nourishes your intestines. Your intestines don't get nutrients from inside itself. All the things that are sucked up by the villi and microvilli go to the liver, and then the liver sends it out. And it actually comes here, and it nourishes the intestines. I worked with a lady not too long ago that, excuse me, my mouth is getting dry, that had really bad menses. And she was so low on blood that these blood vessels were starting to collapse. And they were going to have to remove her bowel because of it. Because her bowel was just dying.
How do you restore the mesentery?
I don't know.
Would it be just through nourishment, through the bowel and different things?
Well, you can't do it through the bowel. What we did for her, and she's seeing some improvement, is we gave her Varigon, vitamin E, things to thin the blood so we can get as much blood there as possible. She also would put hot water bottles on her stomach to keep it warm, to get more circulation in the intestines. And then, of course, we brought her blood level up normal.
You said that you go through from whatever goes through the intestines goes into the liver, and then the liver shoves it here, correctly?
Well, throughout the body. Then the liver, yeah, everything that you eat gets absorbed through the villi and microvilli. It goes through the portal vein into the liver.
Right. So, okay.
Then the liver allows it to go into the bloodstream.
Okay.
Was there something wrong?
No, I'm trying to process it because I'm thinking, how do you rebuild this area? I see what you're doing as far as blood, working with the blood and stuff, but I'm thinking if you're working also with the intestines and the liver, that should also increase.
Yeah, well, yeah, but her case, we knew what it came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, let's say someone's mesentery was just messing up and they didn't know it was because of low blood, because we knew that the blood wasn't getting there.
Okay.
But to nourish this, I don't know because I never had to do it. But my thought would be poultices.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And since the mesentery is much like a mucosal lining, it's made probably at least 80% sodium. So maybe slippery elm poultices?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just trying to go, okay, what if if that's really weakened, how do you get that strengthened? And so, okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, this lady, I don't think it was the mesentery that was bad as much as these veins, and I
The
mean these
veins, yeah.
yeah, were collapsing because there wasn't enough blood.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Then the last part is the ileum. And you know what? We didn't talk about. Did we talk about later on? Let me see. Oh yeah, we do. Okay. About the villi and the microvilli, but I talk about them later on. So the ileum, the last part right before the large intestines, is this light pink here. It contains most of the villi and microvilli. It also hires something called pyre patches. I don't have pyre patches on my chart because it's really hard to tell if it's a pyre patch or a diverticulum. And having weak pyre patches doesn't happen very often. If it does, I don't know what to tell you to do for it anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, they are lymph nodes that are in the intestines. You have the appendix, which is lymph tissue, and then you have the pyre patches. And that's what keeps the intestines healthy. I once took a class, they said if you have a really high fever, like 106 for a long time, that you can burn these out and they never work well. And you are in jeopardy of losing your intestines to some kind of an infection. I don't know if that was Wendell Whitman that said that, which he knew a lot of his stuff. If you, by some chance, they have decided that you have a weakness in your pyre patches, my thought would be lymph gland cleanse, because it is part of the lymphatic system. In the ileum, you also absorb nutrients, especially B12 and bile salts. You secrete protease, which helps digest proteins and some fats. Carbohydrates, which helps you with carbohydrates. And this is where you absorb the nutrient that goes into the portal vein to the liver. It's so important. So this is like the inside. These are the villi in your intestines. Then you have little microvilli in here. We're going to show those later on. So let's say you have food that you digest to this point. That cannot be sucked up by the villi or the microvilli. So you have to make sure your digestion is, you digest food completely. If your bowel is clean, then your nutrients that you're going to be absorbing to make new cells will be clean. If it's toxic, let's say you have a coat of white flour or fecal matter, layers of this stuff, because you have villi the whole way up, not just on the top. Then when you absorb any nutrients, you will probably absorb some of the toxins as well. And that, I am totally convinced, is the cause of autoimmune diseases. And there's more than 80 autoimmune diseases. So if you think of it, excuse me, if you want to specialize just in helping people clean out their bowels, you could help with 80 different types of diseases. That's huge.
Mary,
Yeah,
Susan's asking, does slippery elm have a lot of sodium?
it does.
She says thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this person has a large diverticulum in the bowel. Actually, this is a right eye, so that's the descending colon. But look, the color of this is not too much different than the color of out here. So the bowel is relatively clean. This one too. Maybe a little bit right here, but not bad. But look at this. Look how dark that is around here. This is someone who has a very toxic bowel. Either because they don't eat the right stuff, they eat Cocoa Puffs and Twinkies and no vegetables, or they're not having enough bowel movements. This person's autonomic nerve race, in part. I'm not really sure where it goes here. Can you see where it goes there?
No, I can't see it at all.
Okay, right. Well, this is where it was here. Whenever you have a toxic bowel and then toxins going on the outside of the bowel, that is called leaky gut. IPA will tell you that if you have little, see how you have these little crypts here, that's leaky gut. But this is also leaky gut because the toxins from the inside are able to come out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This one isn't quite as dramatic as the other one, but look, this is still darker. The bowel seems nicely shaped. Not a whole lot of diverticulum, but they're probably not eating well, or something's amuck because it's so toxic there. Acne or rashes that come through the skin often is because the bowel is toxic. If the body can't get rid of toxins through the intestines, the liver often puts it out through the skin. There's a lot of people that are getting fecal transplants, which just make me shudder. They give you a pill that has someone else's poop in it so that the good, well, not even the good bacteria, like E. coli, can infest your intestines. Because there's some people that have a lot of diarrhea, that they lose the bacteria that's in their intestines, or some people do too many
Steroids.
steroids or colonics or clenemas. I know a lady that would give herself a clenema twice a day because if she didn't have a bowel movement. Well, that washes too much of that stuff out.
My son's buddy that he went through the academy, the sheriff's academy with several years ago, was taking steroids because he was a bodybuilder, and he was taking it was a legal thing. But anyway, it ended up, he's 32 years old. He has a colostomy bag, but he's had this transplant. His wife had to give him the fecal matter. It didn't work for him. He's a cop in a car, and he has to run home several times a day to change because he cannot hold so they had to give him a colostomy bag. So here he is, 32 years old, because he's a bodybuilder and wanted to pump up real heavy duty. He ruined his whole intestines. And so they've tried this fecal transplant. It did not work.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not only did he ruin his intestines, but his whole health of his body.
Absolutely. Everything comes around he gets. So it's put him at risk. So it's really sad what people will do to themselves. But yes, I know people who have done this transplant.
That's just gross to me.
It is.
So
Yep.
The story behind it is don't use steroids. Don't do clenemas and enemas. Abuse them. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I would never get one done, which personally I probably would never get one done. But If my
So, you know
health
what?
was, I could, once in a while, I can see people doing it. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I'm around, this area is so full of natural health, but there's some hydrocolon therapists out here. And there's really good ones here, but there's some really bad ones. But I know people who go probably to the colon therapist probably 3 times a week, and they do it for months and months and months and months.
Yeah, I don't think that's good at all.
No, I don't either.
For one thing, if
Um,
you work for the body, it doesn't work for itself, so you can become dependent on it.
I agree.
You clean, E. coli is a bad bacteria if you eat it, but you need it in the last part of your intestines to keep it from getting cancer.
Absolutely.
It's to take care of all the really bad toxins.
Hmm.
So, but that just, shoot me before I eat somebody else's, even if it's in a cute little capsule.
Right.
All right. So, I'm going to talk just a little bit about autoimmune diseases since it comes from the bowel. An autoimmune disease is actually not a disease. It is the body trying to compensate for and protect you from toxins. That's what an autoimmune disease is. The body doesn't indiscriminately attack its own cells. Like a doctor will tell you, well, the body's flawed, and that's just one of the flaws you have to live with. And that's what the doctor told me when I was diagnosed with having lupus. He said, well, your body's a little confused, and it's just attacking itself. That's not it. The body can distinguish between healthy cells and antigens. It can. And it's not solely genetic either. Nothing's solely genetic. Something turns that gene on. Okay. What it is a correct response to the body protecting you from toxins. And this is what happens. Let's say we have a part of your body here. Our body constantly gets rid of cells and rebuilds itself. I heard someone say that once every 7 years you're a whole new person. So if the body, the immune system's going through well, you know what? This cell's been around for about 6.11 years, so we're going to just cut that out and get rid of it. If your intestines is toxic, when the body absorbs the nutrients to replace that cell, it's going to suck in with it some of the toxins. So it will replace that cell, but it's toxic. And the immune system sees the toxin and will go, no, we're going to get rid of that. Try again. But and the immune system is also going through and say, okay, it's time for you, because you've been around for a long time too. Both of these will get kicked out, the body sucks it up, and it replaces it with 2 inferior cells. The body doesn't like that, causes them to get broken up, plus the one is supposed to be recycled anyhow because its expiration is over. And you can see how it looks like the body's attacking itself. But what it is attacking is the toxicity or the acid that the new cells are being made of. I have no symptoms of lupus at all anymore. At one time I was on steroids. I was on Motrin. I took 4 of the orange Motrin pills a day. I want to say 800 milligrams of steroids, of prednisone. I don't remember, though. I should have wrote it down. But I've taken quite a bit of prednisone and Motrin, and in the morning I still could barely get out of bed. I'd walk down the steps, and it felt like my tendons or something were just ripping. It hurt like crazy. I cleaned my bowel, I corrected my pH, and I rarely am in pain.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is because of that. What really scares me is sometimes what people do when they have an autoimmune disease is they will take something for their immune system. Not so smart. Because all that's happening is the body is going to be able, the immune system is going to be able to attack the abnormal cells more efficiently. And it can actually cause a flare-up of an autoimmune response. So it's best to clean if you have an autoimmune and not stimulate the immune system. Does that make sense?
That was a great illustration, I think. The best I've ever heard you say.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Well, that's a fluke. I should study it maybe.
No, I mean, you've said it in several different ways. This was the best.
Oh, thank you. So, if you have an autoimmune disease, do not work the immune system. You work with the bowel and the pH. And these are all the list of the health conditions that I believe can be helped by cleaning out the bowel and correcting the pH. That's a lot of conditions.
Sure is. So someone's asking, do you think that allergies are a consequence of a poor immune system?
I think respiratory allergies are caused by pH, and pH has nothing to do with a poor immune system. A poor immune system is something that doesn't attack. If your immune system is about shot and something comes into your body doesn't do anything, and the bacteria, the virus, just takes over. Okay, look at someone who has AIDS, where their immune system shot. They get a cold, it turns to pneumonia, and they're dead, and the doctors can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't
just too
cause
weakened. Right.
Yeah, right. So that's what a weak immune system does. When the immune system is hyper, it's hyper for a reason. It just doesn't decide, hey, let's party.
Right.
It wants to protect you from all the toxins that's in your body. And it can't because you're so toxic that you're putting them back in. So I would make sure that I clean the body with an autoimmune disease. Never even think about working with the immune system.
Yep, I agree.
I never worked with my immune system, and my lupus symptoms are gone.
I think that that's a added bonus when you clean and work with different areas. It's an added bonus because it supports the immune eventually, because when you're cleaning toxins and the different things out of your body, your normal mechanism that we are created with takes over, and in return you become stronger, but it's not what you work with.
Right. And then the immune system will settle down and just act normal.
Right.
Well, I was, whenever this first came out, when I first kind of put two and two together and learned a little bit about this, there was something that came out that scientists thought was strange, is that people that have rheumatoid arthritis rarely get cancer. Not that it's impossible, but they're much less likely to get cancer.
That's changed.
No, that hasn't changed. It's still that.
No, what I'm saying is they say they had less likely to, you say?
Yeah, that if someone has rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease, they were less likely to get cancer.
But that thought has changed.
Oh,
there are
has
commercials today. Yes, matter of fact, I am working with a little 10-year-old who was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and last night we heard a commercial on the TV where it talks about cancer and rheumatoid arthritis being connected.
Well, I know inflammation can.
I'm just telling you what the commercial was saying, that they are now connecting rheumatoid arthritis and cancer, especially in children. I'm like, oh, great, because I just started talking with this mom, dealing with a 10-year-old who was just diagnosed last week.
Okay, well, then what they used to say made sense to me, but this doesn't make as much sense to me. And that's just because it's so overwhelmed. Probably because the immune system is just so overwhelmed with an autoimmune disease.
Well, I don't think that look at our medical system, and I'm not bashing medical system, but they don't know how to deal with an autoimmune. They tell you there's no cure. They just give you medicine, say go about your business because there's nothing we can do.
Whenever you're saying that, I'm just wondering if the reason why people with arthritis get more likely to get cancer is because of the medicine they put them on.
And that's a possibility. The medical world doesn't make sense to me half the time. I don't think that way.
Yeah. Well, I don't diss doctors, but I do the AMA. They're nuts.
Yep. I agree.
I wouldn't trust them to tie my shoe. Okay. So now,
but I just wanted to tell you that, you were saying that they say that, you don't get it, but that thought has obviously changed because of that commercial I heard yesterday. That I just thought it blew me away.
No, I'm glad you told me that because I've been saying this because that's what they used to say.
Right.
Which kind of made sense because the immune system is so hyper, it's taking care of everything. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
So now I don't know.
Well, it's confusing because, you've got the CDC. Let's take the flu thing, the flu shot. They push this flu shot. Then all of a sudden the CDC comes out and says, don't take, we want you to take the flu shot, but it's really not effective this year. It doesn't make sense. Nothing that they say makes sense.
Isn't that wild?
It is wild. So, it doesn't surprise me that they now have commercials saying this. It doesn't surprise me at all. They've got to cover their butt somewhere, somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I could go on. But there's a couple questions before you move on.
Okay.
So Susan's saying, so Mary, do you find that tobacco users tend to have dirty bowels?
Tobacco has a lot of toxins in it. They spray it like crazy. I know 4 sisters that they grew up on a tobacco plantation, and I have never seen such lousy livers in my whole entire life.
Wow.
So if the liver is toxic, I am sure that it's not going to work, produce enough of the hormone for the bowels to move well. So I can see it affecting the intestines a little bit, at least.
Yeah.
And all those chemicals,
Right. Okay, so Ada's saying, Susan says thank you. Ada says she agrees with you. I had Hashimoto's and fibromyalgia and the beginning of RA, and by cleaning the body, no more symptoms.
Good job, Ada. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way to go. And I've worked with it enough. I'm not sure about the arthritis and whatever because I haven't done a study of that, but I know for a fact the best way that I know of to get rid of an autoimmune disease is to correct your pH and clean out your body. Hands down.
I agree.
Okay. So here's like a little bit of what's going on with the villi and the microvilli. Still you have microvilli on this. These little bumples, folds are the villi. Then you have microvilli. So the bloodstream comes in here, and it sucks up wherever it sucks it up at. It sucks up the nutrients, and then it's carried throughout the body. So, clean bowel, clean cells. Toxic bowel, toxic cells. Or toxic bowel, toxic cells. I did that opposite. Acid in the body will absorb the acid too. You'll get the long version of this, of pH and stuff like that. But basically, the pH should be around 6.5 for urine and saliva. And I'm thinking of having another one before the end of the year. So a couple of people asked me for a pH class. And whenever you have, like between here, typically you still have some reserve. The body is taking calcium to try to protect you. Then when it starts getting like 5.5 or something like this, usually you are losing the reserve is getting low. Then whenever you start getting around 7.0, it's because the body's causing the liver to release ammonia. And then when you get really acidic, 5.5 or lower, double acid, that means the liver's pooped out, your minerals are, you don't have enough minerals to rob anymore. And you get a lot of acid. You see a lot of acid in the eye. This is quite a bit of acid. I've seen a lot worse, but this is quite a bit. Acid in the colon. This is where pyre patches would be in like Dr. Bernard Jensen's, these dots right here. That's where he has them. And this is what pyre patches look like in a staining picture that they drew. See the villi? So it's in the muscle wall, kind of like this. They're in the muscle wall. They're not inside the intestines. They're in the wall of the intestines. And this is what they look like. And I had to steal this from somebody. Here's the people that deserve the recognition. But these are what pyre patches look like. You only have 30 of them. There's not a lot. Because our bowels were not, those pyre patches weren't supposed to handle fecal matter that's really, really toxic. Because you're supposed to have 2 or 3 bowel movements a day. Then on the chart is your appendix. The APP stands for appendix. And there's a little dangler from here. Was it you that told me that somebody's appendix was really long? Or was it Tara?
Not me.
But somebody had to get, oh, no, I know who it was. A lady at my church, her son, went to the hospital. He was having pains for years in his stomach, and they couldn't find out what was wrong. And finally, it was so bad he couldn't even eat. And it hurt him, everything would hurt him. And finally, they rushed him to the hospital because he couldn't stand the pain anymore. And they found out that his appendix had grown really long. It wasn't inflamed, but it grew really, really long. And it had wrapped around the intestines, and it was strangulating it.
Oh.
I know. Crazy things that can happen, huh?
Wow.
But the appendix, too, is a lymph node for the bowel. One of the classes I took said that if you get your appendix out, you'll live, but the chance of you getting bowel cancer or bowel problems has escalated immensely. Because you got rid of what was trying to protect you from what's going on,
Wow, that's scary. You know how many people have no appendix?
Yep, they need to really clean out their bowel. And one of the first signs of an appendix problem is if you run and you get a stitch in your right side.
I get a stitch all over my whole body.
This is a young boy that came to me. I'm pretty sure this is the one. Like I said, when I get these pictures, when I put them on originally, I remember, but I don't take notes. But if it's not this kid, it was another kid that had a really big, look at the appendix.
Mm-hmm.
And he was having pains, and the doctor said, there's nothing wrong. And then she brought him to me, and I said, oh, his appendix are messed up. Really, really messed up. Let's clean out his bowel. Well, in a matter of a couple of days, they rushed him to the hospital, and his appendix had almost burst. But the doctors didn't find it. He was like 5 years old.
Oh,
But look how toxic his bowel is. This should be a blue-eyed child. His liver's toxic and his bowel's toxic. And look how
poor
huge it
baby.
is.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And it makes me really angry when doctors will say there's nothing wrong.
I know. And then almost kill you,
Hmm.
right? Mercy's asking, what about people who had their appendix removed and also the gallbladder?
Yeah, their health is compromised. They need to compensate for that. If I had my appendix out, I would make darn skippy that I had 3 bowel movements every day. You know, I would eat a lot of fiber. I would probably take everybody's fiber to pull out as many toxins as possible. Because the less toxic your intestines are, the less likely you are to lose your appendix.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have an appendix, keeping that all clean is very important.
I have never had anything removed other than tonsils.
Yeah, I had my tonsils removed too. My mind, I think they sucked some of mine out with it, but always.
I was only 4, so I don't know. Could be my problem.
Well, my son-in-law, I remember when we talked about the immune system, I said about so proud that we saved his tonsils. And
Mm-hmm.
we did for 15 years, but now they are getting really bad. And I think it's because he has an abscess tooth.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the doctors are going to yank it out. But at least he had 15 extra years with it, you know?
Right.
Anyhow, so to help with pyre patches or the appendix in general, also detox lymph gland cleanse is really good. Una de gato. Once I was teaching the class in Ohio, and I swear either my appendix almost burst or I thought they burst. They hurt so bad. I had a fever and chills, pain, really unbearable pain. And I put ice on it. It helped a little bit. And I was taking Undagata a couple every hour. I was taking also, no, I took echinacea, I think, because I didn't have also with me. And I never had to get it removed. And I cleaned out my bowel. That was 25 years ago. Now my bowel's cleaner. I don't even have flare-ups anymore. I used to have flare-ups all the time. So if I had a toxic bowel, or if I had any symptom of appendix problem, I would keep lymph gland cleanse, all cell detox, and Una de Gato on hand. Because you can't wait for them to come in the mail, even overnight. I would eat a lot of foods like onions, garlic, and raw cabbage. The onions and garlic can be cooked, but the cabbage would be better raw. And then clean out your bowel. And hopefully you can save your appendix. Any questions about appendix? And it also helps with pyre patches too.
No.
Alrighty. So now we're going to do a leaky gut. Someone asked me about allergies. Respiratory allergies come from a pH imbalance typically. The body is trying to get rid of the acid through the respiratory system, causes mucus, and between the mucus and the acid, the respiratory system can't handle anything else. Then when an allergen comes in the body, voila, you got allergies. However, dietary allergies, I think, come from the gut, or a lack of an accompanying nutrient. For instance, I used to be highly allergic to oranges and citrus, especially oranges. If I eat oranges, my lips would swell like Mick Jagger, my eyes would almost swell shut. I had a physical reaction. My skin got hot. And I read a book called The Ultimate Healing System by Dr. Don Lepore. And when I read it, it says if you're allergic to oranges, chances are you're lacking pancreatic acid, which is a B5. And I took oodles of B5. Then I thought, okay, I'm going to try an orange. I tried an orange and I didn't get a reaction. So I kept on taking the B5 for about a week, and I got a whole bag of oranges. You know how they come in those big orange bags?
Right.
And I sat and I ate nothing but oranges all day. I never had a reaction from those
Sweet.
oranges. It actually, I can't say the word cure, but it actually stopped my allergy in its tracks. Some other food allergies can be because you're not digesting it properly. So we're going to talk about those kind of allergies as well. So there's 3 causes of allergies. pH can cause it, a lack of an accompanying nutrient, or toxic bowel/liver. There's a really good book called The Gut and Psychology Syndrome by Dr. Natasha McBride. And she says that allergies, asthma, although I think it's pH, but she says asthma, eczema, autoimmune diseases, which I agree with, and swollen lymph nodes, which I agree with, come from a leaky gut or toxic intestines. So again, this is where this person's autonomic nerve wreath is. And it's
So,
leaking out.
Mary,
Yeah?
what about hay fever or seasonal allergies?
Usually acid. Even to dust mites, typically acid. Because the respiratory system and the fluid in the eyes, the tears and stuff like that, are so full of acid it can't handle and clean out the allergens.
Okay.
Okay, so whenever your bowel isn't moving very often, it affects other parts of the body too, including the lungs. If you notice, the Chinese constitutional typing is bowel/lungs for people who are metal elements. Well, whenever you have, because you're kind of like a closed system, whenever you have a bowel movement, it causes a siphoning effect. So if you have a drain downstairs in a cellar that's clogged, when you flush your toilet, it's not going to go down as fast. But if the drains are nice and open, you flush the toilet, no problem. Well, that's how it is with the bowel. Whenever you have a bowel movement, it actually causes a little bit of a vacuum that helps pull some of the stuff out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Also, the more toxins are in your bloodstream because your bowels aren't working well, the harder the liver and the kidneys have to work because they have to pull out whatever toxins in the blood. Then they dump in the intestines. If you reabsorb that toxins, it's in the blood again, and they have to do the job all over again. And a toxic bowel will often put toxins out through the skin in rashes or acne or boils or whatever. Man, this one's hard to see too, but right here, you can see there's a little bit of the autonomic nerve wreath. Can you see that? Well, not the wreath, but you can see where it belongs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
There's a little bit here. It's hard to tell. But again, the toxins are past the autonomic nerve wreath. The toxins inside the bowel has leaked out through the muscle of the wall. Here's another. You can see a little bit where the autonomic nerve wreath should be. These aren't the best autonomic nerve wreaths, but you see the toxins have leaked out past that. This should be a blue eye.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that wild?
Mm-hmm.
So, Ada's asking, which lymph gland cleanse do you prefer?
If someone is not hypoglycemic, I like the regular best. If they are, they can't handle the golden seal saw, then I would do the one with the myrrh, which is called lymph gland HY.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good questions, good questions. Okay, so let's take a little wee break. in the intestines, there should be billions and billions and trillions. I even heard one time someone say it should be a 1 with 26 zeros after it, how many bacteria should be on the body. That's a lot.
Wow,
26
that is a
zeros.
lot.
I don't know even what that number would be. But we need a lot of bacteria in our intestines. And some people will tell me, oh, I don't want to take more than one of these probiotic 11 because it has like a billion different bacteria in it. But that's nothing compared to what should be in the body at all. So you don't have to worry. You're not going to overdose if you take 2 of them or something like that. Typically, most people that hiccups. Most people that I know of take usually 8 of the probiotic 11. I mean, you can't do too much, but 1 definitely is not going to be too much. So these good bacteria are not in a fetus. They are introduced 2 different ways. One, as they go through the birth canal, they ingest some of the good probiotics in the birth canal. If doctors test women for strep all the time because they don't want the baby to get strep bacteria, like a strep throat, it doesn't make them blind or something like syphilis did. But if they think that you have a strep bacteria, they'll put you on antibiotics, which will kill a lot of the good bacteria in the intestines. So these women that they're given these antibiotics before they deliver are stopping the body's ability or the baby's ability to get the good probiotics. So I don't suggest women do that. I don't know about you all, but I have known people that have had children years and years and years and years and weren't even tested for that bacteria. I also have never heard of a young baby less than a couple weeks old, have strep throat. So it's not very common. If it was me, I wouldn't get the antibiotics. That's my own personal thing here. Then the rest of it is introduced into the baby's digestive tract through the mother's breast milk. Breastfeeding is so important. I understand that sometimes women can't produce milk. That happens sometimes, although we do have things like blessed thistle and marshmallow and stuff like that to help try enrich and improve the production of breast milk. But in the formula, typically, I don't know of any that add probiotics in their formula. But it's been a long time since I even had to worry about getting that kind of stuff. But breast milk is the very best. And this is in Dr. McBride's book, her statement, that the bacterium is not well established in the first 20 days after birth, the baby's immune system is dramatically compromised. So that's another reason not to take an antibiotic just because you have strep bacteria. Because the first 20 days, if you take an antibiotic, the breast milk is not going to have the same amount of probiotics in there. So what I would suggest, and what I do suggest for my mothers, is to go on eating a lot of fermented foods that have the probiotics before the doctors test them for that. And most of the time, even if they years previously have had that strep bacteria, sometimes they don't even test for it anymore. And the doctors don't give you a hard time. Has anybody heard about that? Now they test and they give you antibiotics if you have strep in a vaginal canal?
I've not heard of it. But it's been 37 years since I've had babies.
Yeah, me too. I know they tested my daughter for it, and they found it one time. I said, don't worry about it. And she had the baby, and everything was fine.
Right. Yep.
Okay, so what compromises friendly bacterium? Antibiotics is number one. Prescribed antibiotics are terrible. They can save someone's life sometimes, but they should not be given nilly-willy. And they do kill a lot of the good bacteria in the intestines. There's also some in the food supply, in cows and stuff like that. They raise them commercially so close together that they're more susceptible to infection. They give them antibiotics for the infection. The antibiotic gets into the meat. We eat the meat. Voila, second-handed antibiotics.
Canned foods.
Yeah, exactly. I used to get yeast infections from green beans. Could never understand why I get yeast infection from eating green beans. And I found out that they put in the juice to keep down botulism, they are allowed to put back antibiotics in the canned food. Antifungals can do it, which I think should be taken off the market. There's natural ways of taking care of it, and I know someone personally died because of an antifungal. Drugs and painkillers, steroids, the pill. Sugar and simple carbs cause yeast to overgrow. And in Dr. McBride's book, she says diet sweeteners. Since the bacterium is so sensitive to acid, stress can affect it, or disease, of course, environmental toxins, and radiation. So whenever possible, I would avoid all of those. Yeast is really tricky to see, and sometimes it's almost something you have to look for because it's not real profound. This one is. If you notice zone 1 and 2 inside of this autonomic nerve wreath is sunken in deeper. So if you were like a little ant, and you're walking on the surface of the eye, you would step down here. Step down. So it's like a sunken living room. Down a step. Does everybody see that? Please type Y if you see it. What I'm talking about.
Mercy says no.
Okay. Let me show you one that, this is a lady that belongs to this eye, I think. But she had yeast so bad that it was coming out of her skin. Look at that. And Victoria, you said yours was even worse, right?
Oh yeah, it looked like I was burned. My whole side of my face, down my neck, and on my shoulder.
Isn't that a shame?
Mm-hmm.
But yeast problems can cause anything from nervous problems, headaches, depression, irritability. That's what's wrong with Victoria. That's what you Trump. Okay, lack of concentration, memory loss, vaginal bladder and jock itch, vaginal infections, bladder infections, and jock itch. It can affect your joints, increased body hair, numbness, tingling, loss of libido, cause you to have sugar cravings because it's using up all your sugar. Some people say it can cause mitral valve prolapse, although I've never worked with that. Sinus, bronchitis, all these kind of problems.
Yeah. And it's miserable.
Indeed. And it's very harsh on the body.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get rid of all of your yeast because it's supposed to be in the body, but too much can just play havoc on the body.
Before you go here, somebody's asking you to go back and explain yeast again.
Well, okay, I will in a second.
Okay.
I promise I will. I have better pictures.
Okay.
There's a spit in the water test. I don't know what they call it. I call it spit in the water test. But you spit, huh?
I call it gross. Just gross.
But basically, you spit your saliva in water. And it should just kind of mix in there. But if you see strings or like a suspended cloud or sinks to the bottom, those indicate that you have yeast in your body. Okay, so this is kind of normal yeast. This looks like it's all one level. This looks like it's sunken in a little bit. This looks like it's all one level. This one's sunken in just a little wee bit. See, it's a little bit.
They almost look 3D.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
This looks like it's 2D. This looks like it's sunken in a little bit too.
You can really see it in that one. That's easy to see.
So does anybody not know what I'm talking about? How about everyone type in yes if you can see the difference between yeast and no yeast?
Mercy's still no.
Okay, that's fine. Then we'll go through it again.
And she also wants to know, so what's the saliva in the water supposed to be like if you don't have yeast?
You should really tell that it's in there.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't get all stringy or, you can still see it, but it doesn't, it's,
no hang time.
Yeah. And nothing that looks like it's solids. There shouldn't be any solids in the water. And these other things look like they're solid, even on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like the mother, and it shouldn't do that. All right. I want you, Mercy, pretend that you're an ant, and you're walking here. This is all on the same level. It looks like you would step down a step to get to there. Do you see how this looks like it's in a little bit deeper? Victoria, can you maybe say it another way?
Well, I was just trying to think of a way. If you look at the eye itself and you're looking at the iris and everything around the iris, it looks like a pool. And so you could take a dive. Like if you were on the edge of it, you could take a dive down in. And so it looks deeper down, like you're looking down into a black hole or something, or like a ledge.
Let me try this. Let's say a side view of the eye. This would be the iris. Okay, here's the pupil. And this
there you go.
It almost goes like that. And the pupil's here.
So it's sunken. It's like a sunken pool or a sunken living room, like she said earlier. Right. You have to step down into it. And you can see it. It's 3D almost. It's like you look down in. She sees it now. Okay, good job.
Okay, so you can see it here. But here, there's no sinking in. This one looks like it's sunken in a little bit. Not bad, but a little bit. This one is all one dimension.
And mind you, you have to. The body has yeast in it. It's when it's an overgrowth is when you can really see it.
Yep. Okay.
Mercy, can you see it in that one? The one that she just had? Can you see it in this one? No, see, I wanted to make sure. See again how around the pupil, again it looks sunken in and there's a ledge. Point to that ledge up there, Mary, right there. See this ledge that she's kind of following? There's a ledge there and it looks like it's deeper in around the pupil. Can you see that now? Yes, okay. that's when you know there's yeast.
Yeah, and Mercy, if you email me, I have a bunch of other pictures I could show you examples too, because this is so important to get. And I didn't get it at first either, you know. Um, so if you email me, I can send you pictures that might help. And I'll try to do a better drawing like this. That looks like a boob. It doesn't even look like an eyeball. I'll try to do a better
Only
drawing.
you would say that.
No, you would too.
Not I.
And then this
She
one is
goes,
sunken in. Huh?
she's just telling you, thank you, awesome.
Okay. And this one looks like it's sunken in a little bit. You can sometimes see it if you look at the side of the eye.
Hmm.
Have them look to the side, you know.
If you're unsure.
Whenever you have yeast, you have fermentation. You know, if you're going to make beer that you want, which is fermented, you put a little bit of yeast in it. So fermentation dots, I know, show sometimes in the white of the eye. Matter of fact, I like seeing them in the white of the eye because it's sometimes easier than seeing the sunken in. This is sunken in a little bit right here, but it's hard. But look at all the fermentation dots that there are. You all see the fermentation dots?
It's just kind of a clarification.
Yeah, but this is what I use more now than that.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah. Because if somebody has hardly any autonomic nerve reads, it's hard to tell.
True.
Here's some more. And if you notice, a lot of times they're in the head area. I mean, this one's not, but a lot of times they're in the head area. Yeast loves to go in the brain. And when people have yeast in the brain, they'll say sometimes, oh, I just can't think. You know, they just have a hard time thinking. They know they're smarter than they are. Or they think they should be smarter than they are. Because they know their brain is capable of doing it, but they just can't think clearly. All right, so what you do whenever you have yeast, you starve out the yeast, then you add a natural predator, and then you stimulate the immune system. Basically, there's a three approach of doing that. Starving it out, don't give it to sugar. And it's really hard because, as I said earlier, when you have yeast overgrowth, because it eats up a lot of your sugar, you crave sugar, oftentimes. Did you do that? Did you crave sugar, Victoria?
Yes, in the form of carbohydrates, yes.
Yeah, when we think, good point. When I'm saying sugar, I mean bread, noodles, sugar, anything like that.
Can I say, though, that the doctors will try to give you medications for it? Medications don't touch yeast. You have to starve it away.
Right.
It's just because all I found was that the medication that they gave me caused me more problems than anything else. Matter of fact, I had more side effects than anything else, and it did nothing but, I felt that it just fed, because as soon as I went on the antibiotics, it intensified like 100 times more.
Or I've had people tell me that it gives a little temporary relief, and as soon as they're off it, then it's like wildfire.
I never got relief whatsoever.
Oh, didn't you?
None, ever. No.
But I have heard people say that it does.
Yeah, and people who will swear by the little tar shampoo and the tar stuff that they bathed with that made you sicker than snot just to smell it and stuff. I mean, I've heard that. I've had people tell me that. But those who have severe problems with yeast, it's not going to touch it. I've never talked to anyone that had a severe case that it even did a dent.
Right. Long term, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely. So starve it out. Don't give it to sugar. Use, complex carbohydrates like broccoli and cucumbers and stuff like that. It doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. Now, some people say to cut out all fruit, and fruit does have sugar in it, but you need a little bit of sugar. For 6 weeks, I had no problem for someone cutting out fruit for 6 weeks, but there's people that go 3 or 4 years without eating fruit, and I just doesn't.
I ate apples.
Okay.
I did not eat the oranges, and because I'm from California, you can go out on your tree and eat that stuff. I did not.
Okay. So, but I don't think going. I literally know people for years that don't eat fruit, and I don't think that is the widest way to go. But starve it out. I stay away from the bad boys. Add a natural predator. Good bacteria eats yeast. They actually eat it. Not only do they eat it, but what eats excretes. They excrete B vitamins. The reason, a big part of why yeast is allowed to be in the body, that you can't eradicate it altogether, is because it's food for the bacteria so you can produce B vitamins. A long time ago, before people got in such a yeast problem, before the antibiotics, I don't know if anybody knew anything about herbs or nutrition, something like that 30 years ago, but people used to take yeast for their B vitamins as a source of B vitamins. I don't think anybody needs that nowadays. Matter of fact, just the opposite. So the good bacteria, you add a lot of that, lots and lots of good bacteria. Then you can stimulate the immune system with yeast fungal. I don't use yeast fungal for minor yeast infections, but definitely for something like Victoria or that other lady had. Or if you have, on a regular basis, yeast infections, I would take yeast fungal. I wouldn't go crazy with the yeast fungal. I wouldn't how I tell you sometimes, triple, quadruple, 5 times as much. I wouldn't do that with yeast fungal, because when yeast dies, it produces toxins. It is not being ate by a bacteria. It produces toxins.
And it's not pretty.
No. So you don't want to kill it off too fast, because killing yeast off too fast can make you very sick. It's better.
I also used all-cell detox too, Mary.
Oh, really?
I did. I did, and I don't really even know why I did, because this is all when I first started doing stuff and got introduced to Nature Sunshine, but I don't remember if somebody referred it to me or what, but I took all-cell detox. I don't know.
And the result?
Well, it took me a while because mine was so severe. I mean, I had it for years, and it took me over a year, probably, to get rid of it. Maybe more, but I did. I was going a little too fast and got a little sick. The die-off is horrid. It's not where you get sick. It's actually painful. And so I kind of backed off a little bit, and I had a friend helping me with it that introduced me the first time to Nature Sunshine. But I actually think it did well. I do. I think that, sometimes it can go deep, 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 and with the all-cell detox, I think it goes deep, and so it didn't hurt.
Well, I know a lady that had terrible thyroid problems, and she was quite heavy. And she went on a yeast fungal, and after she was on for about 5 months, she just started losing all this weight. And she wasn't doing anything different. We were worried that maybe she had cancer. You never know.
Right.
And she had always had thyroid problems, and her thyroid stopped hurting. It wasn't as swollen. It just helped her. So I think, I don't know for a fact, but I think that the yeast was in her thyroid.
It's a very big possibility, because if it can go to the brain, why can't it go to other organs?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I also like caprylic immune. It's kind of like a predator. Caprylic immune is found in coconut oil. So taking coconut oil or putting coconut oil on your skin topically might be helpful. But caprylic acid actually engulfs yeast and suffocates it. and carries it out throughout the body. So it's also a predator in sorts.
Is that a capsule?
Uh-huh.
So
or like I said, you do coconut oil. I'm sorry, what?
You could make a poultice from it?
You could.
For like a toe or something?
You could, but usually topically what I suggest people do is coconut oil.
Oh, I do too. Coconut and tea tree oil.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just curious if you could make a topical out of it and put it on, like somebody's got a bad toe. I just tell them to put tea tree oil and coconut on their toe. Somebody who's got yeast on their, that they're working with. That, I mean, he eats real clean and stuff, but he comes for a foot detox to me, and he's got one big toe it's lifting the toenail.
Yeah. Well, you know what? One of the saddest things that happened lately was a gentleman that came that had a bad toenail like that. He had yeast in his toenail, fungus toenail, and the doctor gave him some kind of medicine. I don't know what it was, and it destroyed his liver. And he ended up dying.
Oh, wow.
He ended up dying because it destroyed his liver. Because by the time he came to me, it was just, I mean, he died maybe a week or two later. It wasn't very long at all. The herbs just didn't have time to kick in, you know.
Wow.
But it was from that he was in perfect health until they gave him that, and liver damage was one of the symptoms of whatever medicine he was taking.
Yeah. Mercy says she hears that a lot.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's terrible.
Sad. It is.
So there's other things that you can do for your toenails. You can even soak it in vinegar water and then put tea tree oil on top. You know, I'm not a real fan of Vicks Vapor Rub, but I'd rather that because the petroleum jelly in Vicks Vapor Rub is toxic. It's made out of sludge that's left over from gas.
It's a petrochemical.
Yeah, there you go. I couldn't think of the word, petrochemical. But that'd be a lot better than taking that medicine that guy took. I wouldn't do that. I'd rather cut the toe off, you know?
Right.
That's such a shame what he went through.
Lose a toe or life, one of the two.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So those are the things that I would take internally. I would avoid several things. One, and I don't have it on here, and I should put it on, is if you are working with your yeast and you're a woman, make sure your husband either doesn't have a yeast problem or is working on it too. Because oftentimes women get yeast infections, especially from their partner. It can be transmitted sexually. Another thing, now this is just not in the bowel, but in the vaginal area, they say to iron your underwear to kill the yeast. So those are some things you might want to think about too. So avoid antibiotics, commercial meat, and canned foods. Fermented foods or probiotics are great. And then coconut oil contains caprylic acid, but there's other things you can take as well.
Ada's asking, which do you prefer, the caprylic acid combo or the yeast fungal detox?
They do two different things. Caprylic acid gets it out of the bloodstream, it seems like, and it engulfs it. The yeast fungal stimulates the immune system to kill it. So what I typically do is, if it's just a little bit, I tell people to take a probiotic and diet. If it's a little more than a little bit, then I tell them to add the caprylic acid. If it's pretty bad, then I add the yeast fungal. So it's just how bad it is on what I suggest. That's a good question. I should have that down there too. The more I teach these classes, the more I realize I didn't have all I wanted to put in here. Okay, so these are the foods. This is the yeast-starving diet, and I do have it on my website. So you don't have to worry about writing it all down if you can't read it. But there's do's, don'ts, and then this is a category. I asked Nature Sunshine about which probiotic would you take for what, and they said Probiotic 11 is the best that they have. They learned and learned and learned, and the more they learned, they came out with a better product. So that's what I would do. Fermented foods have even more different strains than 11, so I like fermented foods even better, though. Dr. McCullough, what did he say here? So he suggests you have something that's at least 10 billion, which is high. But that's not too high for the body. Like I said, there's a lot of zeros afterwards. But this is what's in typical fermented foods. Look how many different strains there are. So though people take fermented foods, take probiotics, that's good as a start. But I really, really think that the fermented foods is what you want to do. Alrighty. At first, whenever I heard about, because I didn't like the whole idea of fermented foods, I drug my feet in doing it. Because what you do is you take food out that normally you have to keep in the refrigerator because you know it'll go bad, and you purposely let it go bad, and then you eat it. And that just didn't make sense to me. But I found out what happens. Whenever the food starts going bad, lactic acid is released as it dies, like lactic acid in your muscle when they die. And when it does, it kills off all the bad bacteria. Then good bacteria and enzymes develop. So eating fermented foods do not make you susceptible to botulism, like I had originally thought. Okay, there are over 500 good strains of bacterium that the body should have. And most of them, although some live like in the eyebrows and stuff like that, most of them live in our digestive tract. 500 different strains. I've never seen a probiotic 500 or 400. So that's why we like fermented foods. And this is what the bacteria stains look like when they take pictures of them. They help digest, they help with energy, and they protect the intestines. So this is my rendition of the good bacteria. You should have layers and layers of good bacteria in your intestines. Not just one here and then one here, just layers and layers of them. Then, whenever, like, say the Helia pylori bacterium want to get to your intestines, they shouldn't be able to. Or if other toxins or parasites try to get in bed or go through the wall of the intestines, what leaky gut is whenever there's little pinholes from these bad guys with the drills. When they make holes in the intestines, that's whenever the toxins can go through. If you have nice layers of good bacteria, these guys can never destroy the intestines and make them porous. But if you're lacking it, then they can.
Mary?
Okay, does everybody understand that?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions.
Okay.
I tested someone for Bacillus coagulans and it tested no. Not sure if I like this one.
Like the test or like this slide?
Or that product. Which one? The herb. Which herb, Sherry? It must be on one of your slides. You were talking about something.
Probiotic 11?
I love that one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. She might be writing. So while she's writing, Mercy's asking, what kind of fermented foods do you recommend?
I would get as many different kinds as possible. The more different kinds you have, the more different strains you'll have. So that's that. But the ones that I personally use, I like sauerkraut. I get this one. It has ginger in it, and it has beets, and it's fermented. It's shredded and fermented. I love putting that on my salad. It is so delicious. Carrots, cucumbers, and then I do water kefir.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not very good at it.
The kefir?
At anything. I have to keep getting new cultures because I kill them off. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Sherry's asked me to unmute her, but I don't have her muted. Unmute yourself, Sherry, see if that helps.
Yeah, you're muted yourself, Sherry. There you go. Okay, speak to us, Sherry. Hello.
Oh, she muted herself.
She muted herself.
I wonder if she's having problems. Well, we'll come back to her. Once she gets going, she'll interrupt us. So.
Okay, yeah, just yell whenever you got it figured out. Once the gut is leaking, I often suggest that people build up the good bacteria to help heal it. But I would also take intestinal soothe and build and slippery elm to help build up the lining that's supposed to be in there. And then L-glutamine they call spackle. Intestinal spackle is what I've heard it called, to plug up the holes. And then, of course, keep the bowel clean and stuff like that.
Mary.
There you are.
Oh, my gosh. I am about to throw this computer through the wall. Do you have anything for stress?
Oh, no, we lost you again. I think you said, do you have anything for stress?
She had to go to a funeral just a little while ago, so.
Okay. Yeah, I would do anxious list and Chinese stress relief if you're talking about today.
Take a deep breath, sister.
We can hear you now. We can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh. Now you went bye-bye again.
Might be your headset.
It could be.
Okay, you should be able to hear me now.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, everything on this computer today is delayed. Like when I try to type into the chat box, it's delayed. I'll start typing, and then it takes a little bit till it pops in. When I try to scroll to look at the questions, it goes nuts. Nothing's working, so sorry. I need something to relax me. But anyhow.
Do you have any nervous fatigue? Make a tea out of it. Sip on that.
On what?
Nervous fatigue.
I need something, let me tell you. No, we were talking about the probiotic, the bacillus, the new one they got out.
Yeah.
That's the one I tested someone on, and it's saying no, and I know they need probiotics. And
yes, it's just one strain, so they might not need that probiotic.
Oh, I gotcha. Oh, yes, I didn't even notice that. Okay.
Yeah, so they probably have enough of that one, but like I said, there's over 500 different kinds.
Yeah, that's true, and I didn't think about it when I was testing them, so, okay. I will, the class is going great. It's just, my computer's just lagging for some reason.
Well, you're in Indiana, right?
Yes. Don't remind me.
Are you getting the snow like we're getting?
No, it's just white out there, but I can still see some of the grass, not much of the grass, but we haven't got nothing.
Well,
I'm so disappointed.
I looked, we have over 2 feet now.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to come see you.
right?
Okay, you come, but you're staying a while. Bring a couple of pairs of undies or something because you're not coming back out.
Oh, thanks for the laugh because I need it. Oh, shoot.
Go punch
So,
something.
okay. Yeah, my husband's not home right now, so I'll just, oh, this
Yeah,
is being taped. Just kidding. Okay. Sorry,
okay.
guys.
No, okay. We're here for you no matter what. Okay, now, another thing the bacteria does is it helps something called enterocytes to develop. The cleaner the bacteria is, the more bacteria is, the cleaner the villi are, and it lets enterocytes get to where they need to get all the good nutrients. The hairs on the enterocytes is what the microvilli are. I thought it was part of your body, but it's not. So I often wondered, people who, you know how you lose hair in your head? They say they found out that people who lose hair in their head oftentimes can't absorb nutrients, like from chemo, can't absorb nutrients because they lose the microvilli. And then all of a sudden, when the hair comes back, their microvilli comes back, and I'm thinking, how could that happen? Well, it's not really hairs. It's hair-like things. But they are little critters that develop in the body. And these enterocytes suck up the stuff and help with digestion. Okay, I think that's what I can see here. All right. So let's say this is a healthy enterocyte. If the body sucks up the nutrients through him and goes, and then his little feet feed it into the villi. So this is the microvilli right here. These things are like the microvilli. They don't have little happy faces, though. As they get older, like the rest of us, they start shriveling up and they lose hair. So if you're going to have these kind of enterocytes in your intestines, you're going to absorb all kind of nutrients. This one, not nearly as many. Make sense? So the enterocytes develop in these folds here. This is where they develop, in these dips, I guess you call them, whatever you want to call them, crevices. And as they kind of march up to the top, and as they do, they mature. What you would like to see is these guys right here on the top. Because this is where, you do absorb some nutrients here, but this is where you really absorb. This is the prime right here. If these enterocytes are healthy, clean up to here, then you absorb much better. But if you don't have enough probiotics here to keep this clean, it's like them walking through heavy snow. I was watching my grandkids out there playing, and usually they're running all over the place, and they're trying to run, and they can barely run because the snow is kind of getting in their way and dragging them down. Well, that's kind of what happens on the villi if you don't have good probiotics cleaning that off all the time. So that's why that's how good probiotics help with digestion and absorption, is because of the enterocytes. Everyone understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. I love the illustrations.
Oh, well, I stole that from Dr. McBride. That's not even mine. That's my
I love
rendition.
your artwork, though. I think they're hilarious.
Okay, so now this is something that never made sense to me. This is one of my most wonderful aha moments when I read her book, and I really strongly suggest that book. I've always heard this, and I know it's true. We crave what we are allergic to. If you gave me a loaf of homemade bread and some butter, I would be a happy clam. I wouldn't bother anybody for a couple hours. I could almost consumed the whole thing. I love bread. However, my lungs were all messed up before. If you remember, I used to cough and hack and sound like all the time. That happens whenever I eat bread. I'm allergic to it. There's something that I don't handle well. And I never understood it. I crave it so much. Isn't my body telling me I need it? Well, no, it wasn't. This is what happens. Things like casein, which is in milk, or gluten, which is in wheat, whenever we eat them, they're broken down in the digestive tract. They're broken down into something called casomorphines or glutamorphines. And they have the same properties as morphine does, like the drug morphine that people take to get high. That's very, very addictive. If you have the good enterocytes, if you have the good probiotics in your intestines, they finish digesting this until there are no morphines. And you no longer will be addicted to casein and gluten products. Because if you stay away from morphine long enough, you don't have the bad cravings. But if you took a little morphine every day, you're going to want more and more and more and more. Same with this. If you stay away from, or if you digest it fully, so you don't have these morphines anymore, then you won't crave the things that you're allergic to. Okay, let's see if that, does everybody understand that?
I did. It was great. How about the book? Yes, everybody's saying yes. What was the name of the book again?
The Gut and Psychology Syndrome. And it's written by Dr. McBride, Natasha Campbell McBride. This is a woman who says that she reversed her child's autism. Or a child, I don't know if it was her child's. A child's autism by learning all this about diets and stuff like that. And if you notice, a lot of times they will take children with autism off of casein and gluten. Okay, so get the good bacteria, curds and whey, which is cottage cheese. It's homemade, which does not taste like the cottage cheese you buy in the store. I wish I could say it was better, but it's not. When I made curds and whey, they were slimy. I guess I had to drain them better or something. I don't know. Yogurt, a little bit, but yogurt is more of a prebiotic. It's not as good. Kefir is good. Buttermilk is, but it's supposed to be good for you. Sauerkraut, things like that, and fermented foods in general. Then, to help heal the gut, besides doing the sliperium and L-glutamine, bone broth and meat stock from organic raised animals, make sure they're organic, can help. Do not heat up in a microwave, which you shouldn't have microwaves anyhow. But the fat and the nutrients in these help rebuild the lining of the intestines. So if you know anybody that has problems with the health of their intestines, bone broth and meat stock would be good for them. I remember my grandfather was having some problems, and he asked my mom to make him oxtail barley soup. And he was losing quite a bit of weight and wasn't doing very well. And my mom made him oxtail and barley soup, and then all of a sudden his intestines healed. After reading Dr. McBride's book, I understand why. Because of the bone broth, in part. So not only does the friendly bacteria do that, but like I said, they make B vitamins. They produce B vitamins. And remember, keeping the gut healthy and enough probiotics in there, that is between 80 to 85% of your total immune capabilities. Your first line of defense. So they help absorb nutrients, produce B vitamins, produce serotonin, help with leaky gut. There's less toxins on the liver and kidney. It keeps the brain clean. It gives you fats, helps digest fats for the brain. I can't say enough about fermented foods. These are the symptoms that Natasha says comes from not enough bacteria, pale or whitish stools. I usually associate that with liver, but this is what she said. Foul-smelling stools, I believe that. I eat a lot of fermented foods, and you know how they say you don't stink? Well, mine's not as bad as those than it was whenever I didn't have good probiotics in my intestines. If around the feces you see like little foam or bubbles around it, that is severe yeast overgrowth. Acidic stools, floating stools, which again is a lack, not digesting fats. Constipation, gassiness, these are the things that she says come from a lack of probiotics. And I think some of them are true, but some of them can also be other things, like constipation can be a weak liver or whatever. Psychological symptoms, she believes autism, the cause of autism is not enough good bacteria in intestines. I don't know if that's true. Like I said, I haven't worked with it, but I do know this. If you give children that are autistic fermented foods, it's not going to hurt them. So if it's wrong, you're just going to make their bowels healthier. She says schizophrenia, ADD, ADHD, depression, dyspraxia, where babies don't suck very well, learning and behavioral problems, eating disorders, bipolar, which I don't agree with that, OCD, sort of, but not really, and there's other stuff, and dyslexia. So you might want to try these. She's a doctor, and she says that she has done studies that show that it produces results. And since it won't hurt you anyhow, we kind of went over the yeast and the autoimmune. Okay, any questions up to here?
No, so far.
Okay. So after you leave the small intestines, there's something here between the cecum and the ileum. Remember, this is the ileum. And it's called the ileocecum valve, or cecal valve, which is between here. And it's a sphincter muscle. It's not really a valve. It's like at the anus. This squishes closed. Then it goes up the ascending colon, hepatic flexure because the liver's over here, transverse, splenic flexure, because flexure means a bend, descending sigmoid, and out. Sometimes, especially with babies, this ileocecal valve will stay open. When it does, things kind of backwash in there. It can cause some discomfort. The ileocecal valve is halfway between the belly button and the hip bone. If you would take on yourself, if you would take your thumb and put it on your belly button on the right-hand side, and your pinky on your hip bone, right where your middle finger is where the ileocecal valve is. Some people pull down the stomach first, but if you massage that ileocecal valve, anything that's been crusted in there, or if it's starting to go like a telescope in on itself, it helps massage that, relax it, and it goes away. And oftentimes it'll help disturbances in young children. Other malformations of the intestines, if the bowel goes out, the autonomic nerve wreath goes out. If the bowel goes in, like a stricture, the autonomic nerve wreath will go in. So the autonomic nerve wreath, or the collarette, whatever you want to call it, follows the contour of the bowel. If you have a prolapse, then the autonomic nerve wreath will prolapse. So this one you'll see is round but looks like it's flat right here. That means that this part here sags a little bit. This one goes up to here, which means that this is the opposite eye. That means that this is a little bit like this. And skinnier than it should be. This is a right eye. So their small intestines are fine, but look how ballooned their large intestines are. I don't know. I think this is a lady. Her bowels looked worse. I think this is an upgraded picture of the lady that I told you that did the colonics all the time. But look how ballooned that bowel is.
Mm.
The problem with the transverse colon prolapsing is it can put pressure on the lower back, causing lower back problems, and can cause prolapse of the uterus. A friend of mine, when I was in high school, her dad started getting a bad reputation because he was a good man, but he quit his job because he hurt. And he kept on going to the doctor, and he said, my back hurts, it's killing me, I can't work. The doctors operated on his back, said, it's fine, now you should be fine, and he was still complaining about the pain. He started having blood in his stool, and he went to the hospital, and they found out he had a tumor in his colon. A big old tumor in his colon. They removed it. And the first thing that he said when he was really coherent was, oh my goodness, my backache is completely gone. Because that tumor was pushing on his lower back. All that time it wasn't a problem with his back, but he felt the pain in his back. So when people have prolapsed colon, sometimes they complain about back problems. Other thing can happen sometimes is they might have a hard time getting pregnant. Dick Williams' daughter-in-law always says that her father-in-law got her pregnant. And what happened is she had a prolapsed transverse colon and she couldn't conceive because the egg could not implant. So Dick taught her to lay on a slant board with your head down like this. She put an ironing board on a couch and then the other part on the floor. And she massaged her stomach up like this, which helped bring the transverse colon up enough that the egg was able to implant. She was pregnant. I would probably also take calcium and magnesium to help keep it up here because those are good for muscles and muscle tone. One of the worst things that people can do is to jog on macadam. All the time in front of my house, because I live on the main drag, we see people jogging. And one of these days, I swear I'm going to take a picture of this and make a pamphlet out of it and run out and give it to them. If you jog on grass, that doesn't happen. But if you jog on macadam, it does. And think of this. If you have a ketchup bottle and you shake it, some ketchup comes out. But if you hit it hard, it drops and it sinks to the bottom and comes out. That's what it does to your intestines, especially if you have extra fecal matter in there. It will cause it to sag. Okay, was there a lot of questions or something? I saw a bunch of things flash.
No, we were just clarifying what blacktop is.
Oh. Nobody knows what blacktop is?
What do you call it? McPadam?
Oh, macadam.
McAdam.
I'm from Pennsylvania, y'all. We talk. We make up our own words. Yeah, we call it macadam. Sorry. Blacktop.
Yeah, I know.
Something hard. Even cement. You don't want to run on something like that because it's like a hard impact.
It doesn't give.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another thing that sometimes happens to large intestines is diverticulum. This is what a healthy bowel looks like. These little bumps on this are diverticulum. If you would do a cross section, if you would slice this, let's do this one. Slice this in half, you would see a bubble. And then fecal matter fills up in there. That's called a diverticulum. If you get a seed embedded in there, or something stuck in there, it can get irritated and inflamed, and that's diverticulitis. Diverticulitis can be very painful, and it can be fatal. If you see someone in their eyes with a lot of diverticulum, I wouldn't do a colonic because they can blow. That muscle's been weakened. Typically, what happens is, anyone ever feel a gas pain?
Sure.
All that gas is here, and since this is balloon-like material, it pushes out that. And then fecal matter fits in there, and that's what causes a diverticulum. So anytime you have gas pain, it means you could be developing a diverticulum. As far as I know, there's no way of getting rid of this unless they cut them out, but then you're going to be losing nutrients to a certain part of your body. But what you can do is you can build up the mucosal lining really, really thick, and that's this pink stuff here. So thick that nothing's going to adhere to the wall. So I know people that have had diverticulitis. My one friend in particular, terrible, terrible bouts of diverticulitis. All the time she was in the hospital for it. We gave her oodles and oodles of slippery elm. And she can eat strawberries, raspberries, she can eat whatever she wants to, and because those typically are bad for diverticulitis. And she has not had a diverticulitis for years and years and years. Before I got married, and I would be married 16 years this year. So a long time, and she still doesn't have any diverticulitis. And this is a picture, and I got it from here, WebMD, so I don't get any copyright problems again. But this is what diverticulitis look like, and then they can get inflamed. But that's what they look like inside of the intestines. This is what they look like in the iris of the eye. Do you see this? This. This. These are subacute. They're probably not causing a whole lot of problems, although they're very big. Look at some of these. This is diverticulum.
Mm.
So basically, and this is a diverticulum right here. Look at that one. That's pretty deep. Oh, this is a lady's eye. It wasn't the other lady's. Remember the lady I told you that she only had bowel movements and she had a colonic?
Oh, yes.
This is her eye. But look how deep these were. I think she probably had bowel cancer. What the doctors wanted to do is they wanted to remove all of her bowel and give her a colostomy bag. She took Cascara sagrada, liver cleanse. Later on, we put her on Everybody's Fiber and lots and lots of fermented food. And now she is having 1 to 2 bowel movements every day on her own. So you can retrain the bowel, at least in her case. Her bowel was retrained. But these are all inside the autonomic nerve wreath, usually indicate diverticulum. And doctors say diverticulum has nothing to do with bowel cancer. They're full of crap. Because I know people that have had diverticulum and then all of a sudden they have bowel cancer in the same place. Although polyps are usually more frequently what causes it. And as far as I know, you cannot see polyps in the iris of the eye. I don't know, do you know of any way you can see it in Victoria?
I haven't seen any myself, no.
Yeah. So these are things that can go wrong. Hemorrhoids, you know the best thing for hemorrhoids to get a potato, a fresh potato, shape it like a bullet, soak it in vitamin E overnight in a refrigerator, and insert it. It's amazing what it does for hemorrhoids. We talked about diverticulosis, polyps. Polyps are probably the number one thing that turns into cancer. I'm thinking that polyps come from a pH imbalance. No way to know for sure, but I'm thinking that's what it's caused by. But I had these brothers come to me, 3 brothers came to me, that every year on their birthday, or their dad's birthday, because their dad died of colon cancer, but every year they would all get together and go get a scope and check for polyps. And every year they had to get a bunch of polyps removed from their intestines. So the wife of the one brought him to me, and then he brought his other brothers, 2 brothers, and I said, well, let's give you bayberry. And then we cleaned out his bowel. The next time when they went a year later, well, it was about 9 months later probably, a little less than a year later, when they went back, the one brother wouldn't take the bayberry, and the other brothers did. The brothers that took the bayberry didn't have a polyp. But the one that didn't take it, as every other year, he had to have polyps removed. And this happened for a lot of years. I've lost track with them. I don't know how many, but for quite a few years, every time they would go, the one brother that would refuse to take the bayberry would have polyps, and the other brothers never had a polyp after that. So I definitely would give someone that I knew had polyps or a history of polyps in a family bayberry. Bayberry, by the way, if you snort it up your nose, also helps with polyps in the nose. Okay. And then, like I said,
Mercy would like you to repeat the potato thing again with the hemorrhoid.
Oh, sure. You take a potato and you take the peel off, and then you shape it like this, like a bullet, so you can insert it easily. You don't want it square because you don't want the ear, cut or anything like that. So you take a potato peeler basically, and you shape it like a bullet, and you soak it in vitamin E overnight in a refrigerator. So just put these potatoes in a little container and get a bunch of vitamin E capsules, preferably with selenium, puncture them, and then just fill it up that it's covering the potato. Then, for the hemorrhoids, you insert this bullet past the sphincter muscle right here in the rectum, so that the sphincter muscle is on the outside and keeps it in there from coming out.
For how long?
Till you poop. And when you poop, it comes out. I wouldn't go back in there to retrieve it or anything like that. Just wait till you poop. And it comes out. I've had people tell me that does better for hemorrhoids than anything else they've ever tried in their life. I mean, you can do Varigon cream or Varigon by mouth, but this seems it's cheaper, and it seems to work a lot better.
Okay.
Have you ever tried it?
No. No.
What, you anti putting potatoes up your butt or what?
No. No, it just strikes me funny. I'm like, I wonder if anybody's ever lost one.
Well, thank goodness, you know, you poop, so it does come out. It doesn't stay
Right.
there forever. It's not like it's going to go up yonder and you'll never be able to find it again.
I'm just like thinking it's going to get lost.
No, it doesn't happen. It's right
Sherry,
past the picture muscle.
Sherry's husband, I know, and I was just, it's just, I'm being silly. Sherry's husband says, no way.
Yeah, I know. I understand that. But I'll tell you what, if it was bad enough, if you tried it, people will tell me that they're going to get them removed and they're in so much pain and preparation doesn't even work anymore, and they do that, and they call me up like the next day and they'll go, oh my goodness, this is a miracle. You need to tell everyone.
Right. I use frankincense, but
I understand. I've never done it. Thank goodness I don't have hemorrhoids because I don't know if I'd do it.
yeah.
I guess I would if it was bad enough. I would definitely before I got operated on.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. You know, and somebody's asking, what about plain vitamin E? No matter, you know, you can
Yeah, you
use
can put
it,
vitamin E on topically if you want to.
Yeah.
But the potato works better. If I would either do the potato or do the vitamin E, I would do the potato. Excuse me. But the vitamin E and the potato together work even better.
And just remember that when you're using your supplements and stuff that they are pure, because you can get some really crappy stuff and then you're putting that in your body. So I use Nature's Sunshine.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah. So somebody's asking, what if you got rid of one, but there's a real old Hemi that won't budge?
I would do that.
I would just continue.
Potato and vitamin E.
Brinks away, yeah.
Did you get rid of the one doing this? How'd you get rid of the one hemorrhoid? I like when you call it Hemi, by the way.
That was Sherry.
It's nice to name your bulges and stuff.
Yeah, well, I'd have a whole party if I had to name every bulge I have.
Yeah.
She's not. Oh, she's like, I asked to take a picture of the Hemi, and he said no way. So that's her husband, Sherry's husband.
It's not like he'd be walking down the street and say, I know you.
Right.
Did I see you on Facebook? You know?
So Sherry, how did he get rid of the first one is what she's asking.
I can't remember what I gave him for that, but it went away. And that's when I thought, I need to start writing this down so I can keep track.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But he would die if he knew I was talking about this on a tape, a tape class, but he's got another one in there. It's white. And when I first found out about it, I asked the doctor, and she laughed at me. She said, well, that's a hemorrhoid. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to know? I don't look down there all the time.
Right.
Yeah, we're wondering why you look down there at all. But anyway,
Exactly.
We won't get into that. We won't even ask. But you know what?
Thought,
you also have glands down here. If it's not red or irritated and it's big and it's just like this, it may be that one of his glands is congested.
That's what I wonder, because it's like white. It didn't look like the other one. That's why I didn't know hemorrhoids went away, because I thought this one won't go away, but it itches. He said it itches.
He may have
times.
a clogged gland, because you have anal glands. They kind of lubricate this with an oil, so when you have a bowel movement, it doesn't hurt. One of his glands may be clogged. Dogs get them. If you go to a groomer, take them to a groomer. If you take them to a groomer, people will squish their glands to purge what's in them, and then the glands go back down to normal to dogs. They do that all the time to dogs.
Well, that makes sense because he does have a polyglandular eye, so he has a weakness in his glands. Yeah. I gotta get that.
Room.
Sherry, take him.
I'm about ready to take him somewhere. Let me tell you, it ain't to a groomer. No.
That's what it sounded like, is to take him to a groomer.
Did the doctor actually see the hemorrhoid?
No, I don't. Well, I can't remember. It's been so long ago since we went. No, I think I just asked my lady doctor about it. But the other one, when I did see the other hemorrhoid, I said, let me look because I want to know what I'm treating and make sure I'm doing it right. And it went away. No, no. Oh, no, believe me, it's not a place I like to look often. So it's still there, and I said, well, let me take a picture of it so I can show, my teacher. No, and I agree with you. It's not like you're going to be walking down the street and say, hey, I seen that asshole somewhere. No. Sorry, class.
Nose on the corner. Nose on the wall, Sherry.
I'm trying to be professional. I'm sorry. I need to get some release out. Okay.
So what about some lymph cleanse? Will that help?
But it's not a lymph gland. It's an oil gland.
Oh.
And I don't know what all you could do for it. I'm thinking, I wonder if chickweed would help. I'm
so
not
make
sure,
like a chickweed poultice, you think?
Yeah, maybe try that. But usually, whenever does anybody here have dogs? That ever they would purge the dog glands, anal glands?
Right.
Yeah, it's the same thing. We have glands too. But we wipe. So usually the pressure of wiping keeps them from clogging like a dog's. Dogs don't typically wipe.
Oh, Ada says she's done that, actually.
Yeah. So what I would do is probably very gently, get some coconut oil very gently, and just massage in this way.
I got to touch it?
Just put some gloves on and,
Tell that you want new china or something. You should get something extra for that. Or have him do it. But I wouldn't purge it. If you try going down this way, you're not going to get anywhere.
Okay. So purge it back up, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like massage it so that all the oil kind of gets dumped out of there. All that stuff gets dumped out of there.
Gotcha. Okay, so you, ladies and gentlemen, whoever's on here, I promise not to have a picture at our next class.
No, we want it. We want pictures, directions. Actually, I was thinking video.
You know what? When he's sleeping, which he don't sleep a lot, I'll just flip upside down in bed and get the old video out.
There you go. There you go.
You got to have some humor in life, I tell you. Okay.
But often,
sorry,
whenever one of those glands get out of shape, you have to do it commonly. It'll keep filling up.
Okay. So, Mary, you said again, just to take the coconut oil and massage it up.
Yeah,
right?
Milk it
Okay.
towards the rectum.
Okay, and do that a few times a day.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Well, not you don't think you have to do a couple times a day. Just like after he's had a bowel movement or before he has a bowel movement, I would do it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
No problem.
It's our pleasure, believe me.
It's not mine. Okay, I'll shut up.
Alrighty. So that helps, Paul. But I'm glad you brought that up because I forget about that gland, and that really is something that happens sometimes, and people think they're hemorrhoids and they're not. Okay. Cancer can happen to the bowel, of course. I would do the calcium and magnesium. I've had people pass tumors through their colon whenever we give them like Uridology, Partiarco, things for their immune system. And we'll cover a lot of what to do for cancer when we get to the immune system. Ulcerative colitis almost always is a pH problem. So I do slippery elm and correct your pH. Irritable bowel is a syndrome, which basically means, okay, we have all, the doctors say we have all these symptoms that people are complaining about, and we have no idea what's going on, so we'll call it irritable bowel syndrome. They can be anything from constipation to diarrhea or whatever. So I would just do all the other things we're talking about, keeping the bowel healthy. And usually if you do them all, it covers it. Crohn's disease, very serious. Oftentimes a pH imbalance. There's a young boy, 17 in high school, and they had already taken 7 inches out of his intestines. They want to take another 7 inches out. And his mother came to me, and he was skinny and scrawny looking, very sickly looking. And we gave him lots and lots of Cyprium. And the doctor said, you have a good 6 inches of bowel that doesn't stretch at all anymore. It's just dead. Kind of like this, you know, this kind of a thing. And we gave him the Cyprium and corrected the pH. And when he went back, I'm thinking it was like 6 months. I don't remember, it's so long ago. But the doctors gave him the barium and all the tests, and they said, we don't understand it, but your bowel is perfectly healthy again, and that just doesn't happen.
Wow.
Celiac disease, some people think it's a lack of good bacteria, so again, eat your fermented foods. It's oftentimes associated with wheat or any kind of gluten, not just wheat, but any kind of gluten. It irritates because they're allergic to it, and it irritates and it inflames the intestines, causes people to bloat and inflame. Nature's Sunshine has something called small intestinal soothe and build. It used to be called UC3J, and one of the C's it stood for was celiacs. So I always suggest people do celiacs. I had a friend that had celiac so bad that she couldn't even eat food if there was wheat in the same factory. So she had to buy food where they did not even have flour for anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, they could make regular bread and then later on make her kind of bread because she had such bad reactions. And she now can eat 2 or 3 slices of bread a day, regular bread, because we gave her the magnesium and the intestinal soothe and build. This is what a polyp looks like, which is kind of like the opposite of what a diverticulum looks like. And here's a person that I borrowed this from because I don't have any pictures of diverticulum. 95% they say of all colorectal cancers come from a polyp. So I would take the polyp seriously. When those young men came to me, I didn't just say, okay, take the bayberry and don't worry about it. I still thought they needed to be checked. And whenever they said, well, the first time they went, they said, what if they find a polyp? I said, well, have them remove it. Because they're in there anyhow with the scope. All they do is they just slice and grab and pull it out. But you can imagine 130,000 people every year have colorectal cancer. And you know what? Almost no one should have that. If they ate enough fiber, had enough bacteria, if they had enough a correct pH of mucilaginous herbs, they should have colon cancer. We can't talk about the colon without talking about bowel movements. Most people don't know what normal bowel movements are. Like I told you about my friend, every 11 days her son would have a bowel movement, and the league said it was normal. When I went to the doctors, because I had ulcers all in my intestines, they told me once a week, once every 10 days was normal. It's not. For every meal that goes in, a meal should go out. They call it train in, train out. If you have too many bowel movements, if you have like 9, 10 bowel movements a day, even 7 or 8 or 6 bowel movements a day, then you're not going to get your nutrients. but 3 times a day is fine. 3 times a day, I think, is actually preferred. Nature Sunshine says transit time should be 10 hours. A class I took with Wendell Whitman said it should be 18 hours. So I would do no less than 10 hours, no longer than 18 hours. The way of testing your transit time is to eat something that will kind of be a marker. So let's say I want to check my transit time. Tonight I will eat beets, because beets give your bowel movements kind of like a pinkish, reddish, purplish color, whatever. So I would eat the beets, say at 6 o'clock tonight, and see if 6 o'clock in the morning I have a bowel movement if it's that color. Or 12 o'clock would be noontime would be the least. If I haven't had a bowel movement in that time, then I know my transit time is way too sluggish. And I would work with it. Or if I ate at 6 o'clock and had a bowel movement at 10 o'clock and it was already showing the color of the beets, then the transit time is way, way too quick. So, beets is a good idea, or corn, whole corn, because you see the kernels of corn, they don't break down. Okay, again, a lot of people don't know what constipation is. The causes can be stress. Medication is big time. I would say even number one. Not eating good food, not enough fiber, not enough water. Water. The more water you drink, the better it is. Up to half of your body weight in ounces, no more than 100 ounces a day. And exercise, like I said, walking is helpful. Your bowel movement should be about this color brown, a light mahogany color. It should semi-float. So if this is your toilet, it shouldn't be down here. It should be like little rowboats up here. It should be like semi-float. It also should be the consistency of mashed potatoes, or barely formed. It should not be hard as a brick, and it should not be watery. If you have enough vegetables and stuff like that, and you have if you have a normal bowel movement, vegetables and stuff like that, and fruits will just keep it going. If you eat beets, like I said, it turns like a reddish color. If you haven't any beets, it could indicate that you have bleeding in the lower part of your intestines. I would not ignore blood in the intestines. Some people take capsicum, and then after they take capsicum for a little while, they add slippery elm. If you take them together, they don't work. So I would take maybe capsicum for breakfast, slippery elm for lunch and supper. Sometimes the bowel movements will be greenish in color, which could be Crohn's. Some antibiotics make that do that. Liquid chlorophyll, especially if you take it in a pill form, does. Or there could be an infection. For infection, I would do lymph gland cleanse and all cell detox. If it's Crohn, I would do slippery elm, intestinal soothe and build, and correct the pH. Gallbladder problems can cause a mustard or a yellowish looking, orangish or yellowish looking bowel. It means your gallbladder is not dumping the bowel salts like it should. Or it could be a sign of Giardia, which is a parasite. If it's gallbladder formula, I would take if it's gallbladder, I take gallbladder formula. I would get tested for Giardia to make sure it's not that, especially if the color doesn't change from taking the gallbladder formula. If it's gray looking, or some people call it clay looking, that could indicate that you have hepatitis or pancreas and liver problems, especially hepatitis. Sometimes antacids can do that as well. For hepatitis, I would take VSC and the liver cleanse. If you have black stool that comes out and you're not on an iron pill, which I would never take an iron pill, because it's nothing but ferric acid is ferrous, which is iron, and they put an acid on it. When it rusts, they scrape the rust off, and that's what they put in your vitamin. Well, your body can't use that stuff. So if you're not on ferric acid and you see black in your stool, that indicates there's bleeding higher up in the digestive tract. If it's low, it'll still have a little bit of blood, but as the blood gets older and digested, it'll turn black. And again, I would do the capsicum for breakfast and then like slippery elm for lunch and supper.
Okay, Mary,
Yeah?
let's go back a minute. Somebody's asking if they take the polyp out, can that spread if it were cancer?
Typically, no. Because most polyps, that's a great question. I don't believe in doing a lot of biopsies. But what they do is your polyp usually is like this, and it's like on a little stem. And it's usually attached to the lining of the intestines. So whenever they snip it off, they take it all out, all together. So no, I think it's much safer than leaving it in there. Now, I wouldn't let them go in there and take a biopsy of it, but they're taking the whole polyp.
And then Susan Young is asking, why do you think capsicum works for these two situations, the both bleeding?
For the bleeding, because capsicum stops bleeding in the body. That's what it's known for. That's what Nature's Sunshine started. Gene Hughes had bleeding ulcers, and he had to take capsicum to keep them, to cauterize. It kind of cauterizes it. The heat kind of cauterizes it. And he hated to swallow it, so then they gave him, it said, well, let's put it in capsule form. And that was the first time that herbs were put in capsule form.
You do want to take it in moderation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Because I took one time a bunch of them, and I hurt so bad. Oh, yeah. I had to use Preparation H. I even sat in slippery elm water. Nothing to take care of. Yeah, it was nasty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, watch how many you take. But whenever we went to convention one time, my old secretary was going up the steps with a glass bottle. She fell, and she cut her hand really deep. It was bleeding like crazy. So we took capsicum, parsley, and garlic, because that's all we had, and we put it on it. It just beat it up. It just stopped the bleeding like that.
Awesome. Okay. She was just saying that she didn't know that. She goes, I thought it was just more for circulatory.
It is, but it's a catalyst. This does a lot. Capsicum does a lot of things. If you add capsicum to a product that's a stimulant, it will like magnify it. It does many things.
Susan Alexander says, I keep cool cayenne in my first aid kit to help control bleeding. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I remember taking one of the classes, and I think they said it's Arizona. I don't remember. It seems like it's Arizona. The EMTs have capsicum in their ambulances for the same reason.
Right. Susan Young says that she takes it when she's chilled from being outside. It gives her a hot flash.
Yep.
It's
And
like a hot toddy.
Yep, and some people, like in our area, when they go hunting, they put a little bit of it in their socks or their shoes, and feet don't get cold.
I never thought about doing that when these guys go snowboarding and stuff.
Yep.
Oh,
It's also keep it away from your eyes.
right, right.
Yeah, because it burns like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's something called a rectocele, which is kind of like a cystocele where your bladder comes out of your vagina. But basically the intestines can, if there's a rip in your vagina, can come out. It's called a rectocele. Also, you can get a prolapse in your colon. And what's that thing that they call? Squatty potty or something like that?
Oh, the squatty potty, yep. Mm-hmm.
Because whenever you have a bowel movement, basically, this is a position that you should have it in. But we don't. We sit on something, and it causes rectoceles to develop, and it causes a problem with the sigmoid and stuff like that. So the squatty potty you put around the toilet that brings your knees up. And there's some people that tell me they have much easier bowel movements whenever they use that.
Yeah, I use it.
And these are the people that did this drawing. I couldn't do that either.
Sherry says, shouldn't you sit more like that to have a baby as well?
You know, I think they need to start changing how women have babies. Yeah, and there's some that do stuff like that. They can squat to have a baby. Back in my days, you had to lay with your butt up in the air because it's easier for the doctor, and you had to shoot that baby, that 8-pound baby, uphill to get him out.
That's crazy.
I mean, even a cow, I don't know about in other areas, but in Pennsylvania, a lot of times a cow will get on a hill and will lay down to have its baby.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that their butt end is down the hill and their head's on the top of the hill. They don't do it the opposite way, you know?
Right.
Okay, I made these just so it would be easier for you to print it out. But hemorrhoids we already talked about. Diverticulitis we talked about. Constipation. This, when you see white in here, do you see this white here? A little bit here and here. That means there's inflammation in there. And since they're in diverticulum, that could be a sign of diverticulitis. Because not everyone who has diverticulum gets diverticulitis. Their lining's nice and healthy.
Susan Alexander's saying something, and then I want to say, comment on that. She's saying I've also used capsicum for elderly folks that have non-specific intestinal bleeding where the source cannot be identified. It works really well to stop the bleeding.
Yep, I agree.
Remember we used that on my granddaughter. My granddaughter had bleeding, and they couldn't find it. They did test after test all summer long, could not find it, but she had bleeding in her intestines coming out through the feces, et cetera, plus she had some other things. Well, we identified some things in that sphenic flexure area in the colon and found a lot of stuff, but we used capsicum to stop the bleeding and threw some slippery elm down, and almost immediately she had no more bleeding. And from the slippery elm, which we're still giving her, has helped with her keep her bowel movements moving very well now, because she would pass like softball size poos if she was just so constipated all the time. But she's just been doing so much better, and it's amazing what some of these small little things that you can use, these little herbs.
Yep.
So Mercy's asking, what about blood in the urine?
Sometimes I would not use it for blood in the urine because if your pH has been off, and what's wrong is the mucosal lining is so thin in the bladder or the ureters or the kidney, it may be seeping out blood. And capsicum wouldn't be my first thought. It would be marshmallow root, because marshmallow root will soothe that and it'll rebuild that lining. So that's what I usually use for bleeding in the kidneys, for the bladder.
Did that help, Mercy? Okay, she says thank you.
Uh-huh. Alrighty. Polyps. We kind of talk about polyps too. Colitis, pH, lacking probiotics. Batchett's disease, same thing. Except for I would add cabbage juice because it contains vitamin U that helps heal the ulcer. Cancer, we kind of went through that. Then I would do a cancer program, of course. Now, parasites. Often people get parasites in the intestines. Other places too, but probably most commonly noticed in the intestines. I believe in doing the Teohi, a paracleanse, the Teohi, a paracleanse, the Teohi, a paracleanse. And then for adults, I would add some Artemisia, which is wormwood. But that pretty much blows people out of the parasites right out of them, you know. And the radii solaris is show in the eyes like this. If somebody had those, I would try to do a paracleanse, or like these. Because although they're not absolutely positive you have parasites there, there's a pretty good chance. And a lot of people say, well, I don't live in a third world country, I'm not going to get parasites. There's a good book called Guess What Came to Dinner by Ann Gittleman.
That's gross.
Yeah, it is. But she estimates that 8% of all people end up with parasites sometime in their life, especially if you don't have good bowel movements every day. If you have 3 or 4 bowel movements a day, chances are they're not going to hold up. But if you have really sluggish bowel movements, it's a possibility. It just is.
It is a good book, though.
It is.
I recommend the reading.
If anybody knows where you can get pictures that are non-copyright, I would love to do a class on parasites, but I like to show people what they look like, and I can't find the pictures for it. But okay, irritable bowel, we kind of talked about that. Just work with the symptoms, because it's not really a disease. You don't know what's causing it. Now this is a parasite that is still hanging around. But look at this, and this, and some of these, how clean they're getting. This is my eye, by the way. I had parasites everywhere. I was in the Girl Scouts. We used to go camping and put meat on a rock and put it on with wire and cook meat, you know, and I used to drink who knows what water in these campsites. So they do clean out. Here's other ones that are cleaned out. So they don't go away completely. If I see this, I would think that the toxic troughs are now clean, if they were light colored like that. Okay, we covered Crohn's and we covered celiacs as well. When you're working with the intestines, know your limitations. If there's severe pain or bleeding, go to a doctor. It could be the appendix, it could be, you know, something really that is beyond your scope. If you see something really bad, I usually have them check with the doctor. You know, like that lady that I thought she had cancer, the one I told you she needed colonics all the time to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. I
suggest she go to the doctors and get tested to see if she had cancer. She refused to. She says, they got me in this place. I'm not doing it. That was her prerogative. I'm not going to argue into going to a doctor. But I would make a suggestion in that, because it could be beyond what I could take care of.
Right.
You know?
I sometimes suggest that they go and get a diagnosis, and if it's something they want to work with naturally, come back.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So that is your intestines.
Great class.
Science about it. Are
That's
there
a
any
great
questions?
class. Not so far. A couple people may have some now, since it's the end of class. So we'll give them a second to write them if they want. Ada says, fantastic class, thank you.
Well, thank you guys for coming for your questions.
Okay, I've got a question. What if you poo and not the whole poo come out?
Then you're probably lacking magnesium, at least. Because if, like sometimes you can't poo because you're impacted. That's something different. That's usually, I would do slippery elm, stuff like that. But whenever you sit down, you should just go, ugh, and it should just splat. If you have to go, then you don't have enough magnesium. Because the magnesium should, oh, thank you, Janelle. Can you email that to me? Because the magnesium should have the bowel movements. When I have a bowel movement, I don't have to push anymore. Back whenever I had a bowel movement once every 10 days, I felt like I was having a baby. You know, I even sometimes had to push my foot against the sink just to kind of prop things up so I could go. I mean, it was terrible. But when you sit down, you should just go splat. If you ever see a cow go to the bathroom, we should go like a cow. So if you can't get it all out, then chances are you need magnesium. Unless there's growth or something there, of course. But
right. That would be no pain, nothing like that. That would just be that it doesn't all come out.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. Any other questions?
It's now or never.
Oh, Sherry goes, I almost hate to listen to this recording about the Hemi. It will be one of the most interesting ones.
Yeah, we'll put it on YouTube.
There you go. Oh my gosh. No, it doesn't look like there's any other question. It was an excellent class. Next week we have, in our weekly class, it's, what is it next week? Is it stress?
Let me see.
I think it was
stress. Stressed out. That's the only one we have.
Tuesday. Monday is our weight loss class. It's been an awesome class, by the way.
Yep.
It's 30 minutes long.
The adrenal gland. So, and then the first week in February, we're going back to our iridology classes. And then on Wednesday is What Is Your Body Telling You, which I think you'll like that class too.
It's a fun class.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, thank you all. I hope for those who are getting snow, I hope it melts without you having to shovel it and you stay warm. And
we hope that you stay warm and not get snowed in or anything. I was just looking, Susan Young was just saying, I'll be on the new show called $1 Billion Wreck on the History Channel beginning February 15th, if anyone's interested.
Oh, really? What's that? I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of it either. What is that, Susan?
Are you going to talk about health or what?
No, it's my children's father discovered a White Star liner, the RMS Republic. It was sunk in 1914, I think, about 80 miles off the coast of Nantucket. Anyway, my son now is an intellectual properties attorney and had nothing to do. I mean, I raised the kids myself, and I haven't seen their father for over 25 years. But anyway, Grant, my son, got the salvage rights from the U.S. District Court in Boston. They've been pending for like 30 years. So Grant developed over the last 3 years kind of a deal he put together, and Michael Bay, the big movie producer, met Grant. My daughter Tess was at a cast party. She's a model in Miami. So anyway, Michael Bay joined with Grant to produce a new series for the History Channel, supposed to be their flagship show, about the history of that wreck and now the salvage efforts and all that. So anyway, I'm in the first episode. I had talked about very uncomfortable things, but it's an hour long, I guess, every week for 8 to 10 weeks. So
wow,
very
I'll
cool.
I'll be the next Honey Boo Boo.
There you go.
You have to send us your autograph.
Wait, well, yeah, well, hey, you'll have to pay for it. I'm just kidding. But anyway, it should be. I didn't want to do it, and I wasn't paid anything. If I do it again, trust me, they're going to pay me. But I'm real proud of Grant. He's put all this together. But it's kind of a big deal, So
Very cool.
very.
Did they already film it?
Yeah, it was filmed starting in August here in West Virginia for the first episode. I think he has to fly to L.A. No, he has to fly to New York. It's supposed to be in 2 days, and I told Miss Ryan, I said, Grant, I think they didn't know what was going on when they booked that in L.A. yesterday. You might want to change that because the airports are closed, but it should be kind of fascinating, I think.
Very cool. And you said I don't get the History Channel. Bugger. I wonder if it's going to be on something like you can see on.
You probably see reruns or something on the web. Anyway.
Oh, cool. I'll look for that.
I kind of don't want anybody to watch, but I thought, well, what the heck.
No, we're glad you said that. No, this is exciting.
So anyway. So you can see who you're talking to, at least, right?
Right?
Okay. All right. Well, I thought I'd throw that out there. So have a good week, everyone. Hope nobody gets nailed by the storm very badly, and hope everybody keeps power.
Right.
Thanks. All right.
Yeah.
Y'all take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.